Chapter 1937. Boom! A floating mountain suddenly exploded into powder. On the martial arts field that was as red as snow, hundreds of warriors kneeling on the ground had sweat on their foreheads. Emperor! He was furious. The reason was none other than the battleships and soldiers sent to assist the Star Spirit world, as well as 2 capable generals, did not return. Who was the murderer? They had not figured it out yet. Thump, thump, thump. At this time, an old man who looked like a fortune teller cupped his hands and walked down the stairs with his head lowered. Then, he knelt on the ground and said respectfully, "My emperor, the divination has been done. Speak." A cold voice came from the hall, obviously filled with extreme anger. The murderer who killed the Transcendent King and the Life-Killer King is the same person as the Gallo King and the Dora King, the old man said in fear. As soon as this was said, the kneeling warriors immediately knew who it was. Whoosh! Suddenly, a stream of light flew out from the hall and shot past the old man's ear, directly blasting another floating mountain in the distance into dust. This power was extremely terrifying. Everyone felt a chill run up the soles of their feet. They had never seen the Sky Demonic Emperor so angry. It was understandable. So many subordinates and capable generals had died in the hands of the same person. Even his own clone could not avoid it. Anyone with a temper could not help it. Jun Changshao. The enmity between you and me is irreconcilable. The Sky Demonic Emperor's angry voice resounded through the entire plane and seemed to penetrate the void, reaching the ears of Jun Changshao, who was checking the finances in the Star Spirit World's realm city. He slowly clasped his fingers together and said indifferently, "The show has just begun." The Star Spirit World was taken down. The commander was thrown into the Tianyuan prison pagoda. Aria's importance was shown again. After a few days of care, she told him everything she knew. The Star Spirit World. It was just one of the planes controlled by the Sky Demonic Emperor. In the vast upper universe, there were also a few strongholds, and their overall strength was in the first echelon. How is this possible? Jian Guishu sat down, his eyes filled with disbelief. The commander named several planes, one of which he was very familiar with. He even had a life-and-death relationship with the Realm Master, but he did not expect that the Realm Master had already sided with the Sky Demonic Emperor. Feng Shania. Jian Guishu said, at such a young age, he used the hot blood in his heart to kill the evil dragon that brought disaster to the world. Now, He clutched his chest and said, "Heartbreaking." Senior. Jun Changshao said, "People change." AI. Jian Guishu sighed and seemed to have aged quite a bit. As a matter of fact, after joining the Jun Alliance, he had considered bringing Jun Changshao to visit this old friend of his in the Hengyuan realm, and sincerely invited him to join them to fight against the Celestial Demon Emperor. In the end, the dragon-slaying youth had become the evil dragon's servant. Jun Changshao sat down and rested his chin on the back of his hand. He said, "I thought the opponent was only the demonic emperor, but now it seems there are many more unknown enemies." The commander of the Star Spirit World only knew a small part of the information, and no one could say for sure how many planes the Sky Devil Emperor had gathered over the years. At that moment, Jun Changshao felt as if he was going to become the enemy of the entire universe. The system said, the planes that can be won over by the demonic emperor should have a certain amount of prestige. If the host chooses to fight him head-on, he will really become the enemy of the entire universe. So, Jun Changshao said solemnly, "There's still a long way to go." Back Mountain. Lu Qianqian came to the ninth heaven's secret realm as usual. Just as she was about to enter to cultivate, she suddenly stopped in place and turned to look at the patriarch who was leaning against the tree. "Aren't you going to the medical hall to recuperate? Don't force yourself." Lu Qianqian remained silent. Although she looked normal now, her meridians were actually damaged in many places. The reason was to summon an SSS rank god and consume a large amount of attribute points to forcefully freeze the Overkill brothers. If it was just a divine secret realm, it wouldn't be a big problem. "This disciple is fine," Lu Qianqian replied. Jun Changshao said with a straight face, "This is my order. Now, go to the medical hall immediately." Lu Qianqian turned around and said, "This disciple obeys." Seeing her leave, Jun Changshao said, "There are some things that I already know." Lu Qianqian stopped in her tracks. There was no surprise in her eyes, as if she had already guessed that Su Xiaoma would tell the patriarch. Actually, the patriarch once said that as long as I am the eldest disciple of the sect of all times, I will be the eldest disciple of the sect of all times forever. Ah! Jun Changshao said, "He did say that. I will work hard to be the eldest disciple and won't let the patriarch down." Lu Qianqian finished speaking and got up to leave the back mountain. Jun Changshao leaned against the tree and was silent for a while, then shrugged, "That's good too." Phew! He stretched, looked back into the distance, and said, "What are you doing sneaking around?" Rows of Flowers walked out and shrugged like he did just now. "If I said I was passing by, would my husband believe me?" "Believe, as if." Jun Changshao said in a bad mood. "Actually." Rows of Flowers stopped beside him, put her hands on his shoulders, and said with a smile, "As long as my husband has me in his heart, I don't care if there is anyone else in your heart." Jun Changshao was speechless. "Is there something wrong with your brain? Back in the Soul Continent, my husband said that he had 3,000 wives and concubines." Rows of Flowers joked, "Why haven't I seen any of them until now? I just said it casually, and you really believed it." "I do." Rows of Flowers said, "Don't you humans have 3 wives and 4 concubines? Don't you all like the new and hate the old? That doesn't include me." Jun Changshao held his head high and said with his chest out. The system couldn't refute this because it had followed him for many years. Even if it was successful and famous, even if it was powerful, it really didn't have any improper thoughts. The most it thought about was when it could complete the bullshit main task. "If my husband can't let go of some people, I won't mind." After Rows of Flowers said this, her right hand gently stroked his face, and then gracefully left. "Hey!" Jun Changshao shouted at her, "If you are sick, you should go to the medical hall to have a look." Rows of Flowers stopped, stretched out 2 slender fingers, and said, "My husband's heart can only hold so much." Watching the graceful figure disappear in the back mountain, Jun Changshao held his head and said, "She is really sick." The upper universe was a little chaotic. In a short period of time, all the forces in the various planes that rebelled against the Celestial Devil Emperor suffered a devastating blow. Many powerhouses hoped to find an opportunity to break through to a higher level or even enter the land of eternal life in the turmoil of heaven and earth, but in the end, they died, and their cultivation was lost. Swish! Swish! Not long after, the Celestial Devil Emperor's army came to the Star Spirit world again. However, this plane had long since been empty, including the cities and resources, all of them had disappeared. Beep beep beep. Beep beep beep. 4-8 Division Heavenly Dragons landed in the Star Spirit City and stood in the open space that was originally a luxurious palace. Suddenly, they heard a faint sound. What's that sound? Not good. Retreat. Rumble. The Star Spirit world, which had an extremely high status in the upper universe, suddenly exploded, and the mushroom-like momentum covered a large area of the universe's starry sky. This was a gift Jun Changshao gave them before he left. Art. Originated from the explosion. Ft. Ft. In the explosion, 4-8 Division Heavenly Dragons flew out in an extremely sorry state. They were blown up into a terrible state. If it weren't for their strength and if they hadn't discovered that something was wrong in advance, they would have replaced Dora King as one of the most miserable. The 4 of them survived, but the thousands of warships and a large number of soldiers they brought were all buried with the Star Spirit world. Sect of all times. When Jun Changshao sensed the explosion, he said, "We have finally avenged the falling star continent." Yes. They had avenged their hatred. Back then, the falling star continent collapsed because of the invasion of the Star Spirit world. Now, that plane was also blown into dust. It could be said that it was the cycle of karma and retribution. Chapter 1938. The plane that robbed others for their livelihood was completely turned into history dust with a loud bang. Unfortunately, this kind of explosion art was presided over by Jin Dejuan. Jun Changshao did not use the upper realm version of the soul bomb, otherwise the power would only be more powerful and the special effects would be stronger. Although a high-level plane was blown up, the treasures, spirit stone veins, and creatures inside were all taken into the eternal world, which was a lot of benefits for Jun Changshao. Resources were not of much help. There was the Heaven Veins secret realm, so it was not that bad. The real benefit was a large number of high-quality technical personnel, such as array masters, forgers, shipbuilders, and so on. The star spiritual world had rich scientific research results. Bringing all those researchers into the eternal world would definitely be much more valuable than martial arts resources. However, when the creatures of the star spiritual world were integrated into the eternal world, it suddenly became crowded. We must solve this problem. Jun Changshao integrated into the Tianyuan prison pagoda, came to a specific cell, and said, "Have you thought about it?" Through the dark environment, one could see a small ghost-like thing inside, its whole body bound by various chains and spells. Who? The origin of the star spiritual world. Jun Changshao brought it in before blowing up the plane. Damn! The Tianyuan prison pagoda could suppress the upper-level origin? Don't be surprised, didn't you see that it was sealed by various chains and spells? Otherwise, it would definitely be uncontrollable. To put it bluntly, what Jun Changshao could suppress, the pagoda could also suppress. On the contrary, at the current mainstream level, nothing could be suppressed. The origin of the star spiritual world was silent. Master! Arya waved her whip and walked over, saying fiercely, "Since this guy is not cooperating, let me reform him." Jun Changshao said, "We need to be gentle, not violent." If it was a human or a certain attribute, Go Sheng would definitely let Arya care, but after all, it was the origin of the plane. If it was broken, it would be troublesome. Okay. Don't be idle, go reform others. Jun Changshao looked at the group of high-ranking nobles of the star spiritual world who were sent over. Since they had surrendered, they could not be cruelly killed, but they could not be let go. They could only be locked in prison. All right. Arya walked over gloomily, dragging the whip on the ground, making a creaking sound. Jun Patriarch. The commander said in horror, You can't abuse the captives, pa pa pa. Pa pa pa. Ah! The blood-curdling screams resounded throughout the prison, sending chills down everyone's spines. Zhang San, who was locked in another level, hurriedly covered his ears and howled in his heart, "It's starting again." The feeling of being whipped by the soul-suppressing whip was something that he would never forget for the rest of his life. It had even left a shadow in his heart. Even the slightest sound of movement would cause his scalp to explode. There were many aristocrats locked up, and Arya was destined to be busy for a while. Jun Changshao did not leave. Sitting outside the prison where the plane's origin was kept, he crossed his legs, squinted his eyes, and hummed a little tune, as if he was listening to the beautiful screams. Ah! Ah! The nobles of the star spirit world were being cared for one after another, and screams of pain could be heard everywhere. The planar origin bound in the cell listened to the screams of the living beings it had once nurtured. Waves of fear gradually rose in the depths of its heart. This was a kind of torture. This was a kind of torment. As Arya crazily whipped the aristocrats who had once treated their corpses as if they were not human, the unyielding will of the planar origin began to waver. "Young man," it said with difficulty, "I've thought about it." Swoosh! Jun Changshao raised his hand. Arya stopped and panted with her hands on her hips. After beating them for so long, she was also quite tired, but she was actually very happy. Jun Changshao clasped his fingers together and said, "The living beings you once nurtured have done such heartless things. I'm giving you a chance to atone for your sins." The planar origin of the star spirit world was silent. That's right. It had nurtured countless living beings with selfless spirit. But the good and evil of living beings were not something it could decide. Why should it be the scapegoat? Why should it atone for its sins? Come. Jun Changshao opened the door and walked in. He placed a hand on its head and said, "Assist me and create a future together." The planar origin said, "Are you sure you want to do this?" "Yes. If you fail, your soul will be destroyed. Trust me, I can do it." Seeing that he was so determined, the planar origin stopped talking. It relaxed its mind and stopped resisting. Its body gradually turned into mist and lingered around Jun Changshao. What was he doing? The two sides were signing a contract. In other words, Jun Changshao was going to inherit the planar origin of the star spirit world. Buzz! Buzz! The planar origin turned into nothingness and slowly merged with the body and soul. Jun Changshao had inherited the origin of the Shenyuan realm before, so he had rich combat experience in this area. He completed it successfully in about half a day. No accidents, no pain. He was destined to disappoint many people. Swoosh! After controlling the planar origin of the star spirit world, Jun Changshao left the pagoda of prison and came to the depths of the underground in the central area of the eternal world. It was a relatively spacious palace, and there were similar spirit stones flickering in the central area. This was the planar origin of the eternal world, which was the former origin of the Shenyuan realm. The mineral veins that existed in the entire plane and the attributes that floated between heaven and earth were all created by this thing. Swoosh! Jun Changshao waved his hand, and a flowing light gathered in his palm. This was the planar origin of the star spirit world that he had just inherited. The purpose of taking it out was to merge the two top origin. Crazy! The system said, "The host is crazy." It was already very good to be able to bear the weight of two planes. Now he wanted to merge them. This behavior was equivalent to forcibly merging two bombs into one bomb. There was no denying it. If he succeeded, the power would definitely skyrocket. However, the risk was the detonation. Who would he blow up? Whoever inherited the origin, whoever tried to merge would be blown up. No wonder the planar origin of the star spirit world just said that if he failed, his soul would be destroyed. "I'm not crazy," Jun Changshao said with a serious expression, "I'm creating a miracle." Swoosh! As soon as his voice fell, the planar origin of the eternal world turned into a pocket-sized form and floated on the other palm of its master. At this point, Go Sheng had an origin in his left hand and an origin in his right. Everyone. His face gradually distorted, and he said, "It's time to witness a miracle." Swoosh! He put his hands together and the origin touched. Outside. The disciples of the sect of all times were busy dividing all kinds of materials, and the major clans were busy counting the spoils of war. Suddenly, it was as if someone had turned off the switch in the originally clear sky, and the world suddenly turned dark. What's going on? Everyone was surprised. Swoosh! Swoosh! At this time, the sky suddenly brightened again, and then it suddenly turned dark again. The sky could clearly see that lightning flashed and thunder erupted from time to time. It was very much like a short-circuit scene that often happened in horror movies. They didn't know. This was the fusion of two plane origins. They didn't know. If it failed, the soul of the realm master who controlled the plane would be destroyed. Here was a multiple-choice question. Readers who want to finish quickly, please skip to plot F. Readers who want to continue writing, please skip to plot B. Plot, sizzle. The sky of the eternal world was still flashing with lightning and thunder. Jun Changshao, who was under the ground, clasped his hands together tightly until he couldn't bear it anymore. He roared, "I really want to live for another 500 years. Boom! His body cracked, and blood splattered. At this point, the protagonist failed to fuse the plane origin and died. Plot B. Sizzle. The sky of the eternal world was still flashing with lightning and thunder. Everyone's expression became more and more serious, and they even felt that an ominous sign was about to appear. Buzz! Suddenly, the flickering phenomenon stopped, and the entire plane returned to normal. Rumble! Rumble! The ground under their feet shook frequently. Everyone was stunned. Soon, they found that the space of the eternal world was being stretched and expanded little by little. Plop! In the underground palace, Jun Changshao sat down, sweating profusely. Looking at the fused origin and feeling the rapid expansion of the eternal world, a bright smile gradually appeared on his face. It worked. A miracle was born. Chapter 1939. Rumble! Rumble! The ground of the eternal world was expanding, and the space was extending until it was 10 times larger than before. From this, it could be seen that the fusion of two top-level origins was not 1 + 1 = 2. Jun Changshao was very pleased. Taking a huge risk and succeeding was indeed a miraculous gain. Whoosh! The cool wind and comfortable air drifted through the entire plane. The fusion of the two origins not only expanded the area, but also improved the strength of the nature of heaven and earth. Although it was difficult to see the effect for the time being, the level of the spiritual stone load would increase by more than 10 times over time. Jun Changshao's move undoubtedly gave the eternal world greater potential for growth. Buzz! Buzz! In the underground palace, the new origin was shining brightly, and all kinds of energy spread out along the soil to other areas. The Sect of all times origin had the upper hand in the fusion process, so the origin of the star spiritual world existed more in an auxiliary state. I'm looking forward to it. Jun Changshao smiled and said, "What kind of changes will you bring to this plane in the future?" Buzz! The new origin shone brighter, as if responding to its master. Sect of all times. After Jun Changshao came back, he sat in the hall and began to think about the next thing seriously. There were too many creatures in the eternal world this time. Since they could not be killed, they had to rearrange. Pass down the order. Jun Changshao said, "The residents of the original star spiritual world have the right to live in the eternal world. They can choose to settle down in any city without any privileges or noble status." Patriarch Yuan Gongzi said, "What about the former aristocrats? They've all been transformed into military service. Those who perform well can get permanent residence. In addition to the top aristocrats like the commander, there were many second-class and first-class residents. They might have had noble status, but now that they came to the eternal world, they naturally had to start from scratch. The star spiritual world collapsed. The creatures living there weren't killed or turned into slaves when they were sent here. It was enough to show Jun Changshao's benevolence and righteousness. After most of the martial artists were arranged, the researchers were also arranged. After some consideration, Jun Changshao decided to send all of them to the land that had been expanded. Then, they would build cities and play their roles. For a moment, many cities rose from the ground, and equipment factories and shipyards appeared one after another. The technological civilization that originally belonged to the star spiritual world was slowly taking root in the eternal world. It was not hard to imagine that many years later, this expanded dimension would not only have majestic heaven and earth attributes and a superior martial arts environment, but technology would also be integrated into the lives of ordinary people. Surge! Jun Changshao stood at the peak of the mountain and looked at the plain full of vitality. He said proudly, "A new world." Jun Patriarch Jian Guishu walked over and asked, "What's our next step?" "Convince more planes and forces to join the Jun Alliance so that we can fight against the demons that are wreaking havoc in the universe," Jun Changshao said. Now that he had gotten rid of the celestial demonic emperor's army in the star spirit world, he did not think that he had the strength to contend with the other party. The safest way was to integrate more forces. Not bad. Jian Guishu agreed, "This is the safest way." Senior Sword Saint Jun Changshao said, "I plan to make a trip to the eternal world." Jian Guishu's expression became pained. A friend who had once been through life and death with him had become the claws of the celestial demonic emperor. Every time he thought about it, he would be heartbroken. Whoosh, the eternal ship advanced rapidly and merged into the endless universe. Jun Changshao had two goals for going to the eternal world this time. First, to eradicate the celestial demonic emperor's stronghold. Second, to destroy his claws. To put it bluntly, to deal with this kind of boss, one could not fight head-on. One had to find a way to weaken his strength. There's another goal. The system added, complete the main mission. That's right. That was the biggest goal. Getting rid of a star spirit world gave him 15%. The eternal world was also considered the first tier. If he took it down, he should be able to increase the completion rate by a lot. On the way, Jian Guishu leaned against the window, looking at the pitch-black universe outside, his thoughts returning to the past. He had once been to the eternal world and met the hot-blooded youth, Fang Shania. That was a child full of vigor and justice. He threatened to get rid of the evil dragon that was plaguing the plane and return a bright universe. Unfortunately, the former youth had changed. The justice in his heart was replaced by evil, and he was willing to become the claws of the evil dragon. Senior. Jun Changshao walked over, put down a jar of drunken life, and said, "We can't control everything, we can only do our best." Ha ha ha. Jian Guishu raised his head and laughed, saying, "Little fellow, this old man has walked a long way in his life. Naturally, I won't be sentimental and worry about gains and losses. Come. Drink to your heart's content. Eternal world. The first-tier plane of the upper universe. In terms of overall strength, it couldn't be compared to the star spirit world, but it still had power that couldn't be underestimated. When Jun Changshao relied on the spirit of concealment to quietly blend in, feeling the powerful heaven and earth attribute, he couldn't help but sigh, "If it helps me, why worry about not getting rid of the demon emperor?" He didn't choose to deploy the Sect of All Time's army to directly flatten the entire eternal world. Instead, he first went to the various cities to understand the situation. Unexpected. It was very peaceful here. People lived and worked in peace and harmony. Are you sure it's under the control of the demonic emperor? Jun Changshao's heart wavered, and he even suspected that the commander was lying to him. In the next few days, he visited a few more cities one after another. He had never seen war, nor had he seen killing. The residents of the city were mutually beneficial and everyone was virtuous. It was as if they were in the same world. Before he came, Jun Changshao had thought that the eternal world must be in a violent and killing environment. People were living in water and fire, anxiously waiting for him to save them. In the end, he was slapped in the face by reality. No! The way to enter is wrong. A plane secretly ruled by the demonic emperor should be very cruel. I am now increasingly suspicious that the host and the demonic emperor are the same person. The system said. In the star spirit world, slavery was the main thing. In the eternal world, equality was mutual assistance. Two planes, two completely different situations. It was very similar to Jun Changshao's extreme personality. Sometimes he was very bad, sometimes he was very kind. Bullshit. I am me, a different kind of firework. How can I be the great demon who brings disaster to the upper universe? That's hard to say. The system guessed, maybe the future host can't find the opportunity to enter the land of eternal life, so he can only deliberately use Yixingchen's reincarnation and disintegration method to create a version of himself that brings disaster to the world, and a version that saves the world. No matter which clone succeeds, they can finally pry into the great Tao. Jun Changshao was speechless. This brain hole, I'm going to Buddha. You let me win. If the system had a body, it would definitely be very arrogant. Imagination. I'm not weak either. Chapter 1941. After staying in the sanatorium for a while, Jun Changshao immediately understood that the so-called Xanadu was a place where people's souls and thoughts were controlled by drugs. Because they believed in the Realm Master, they helped each other. It could be said that this was just a kind of brainwashed believer, forcibly following someone's orders to deliberately whitewash peace. If you cover your ears, others won't be able to hear the bell. Jun Changshao shook his head. True peace required living beings to consciously maintain it, not to use some kind of method to control it. Otherwise, what was the difference between them and the walking dead? The star spirit realm controls the corpse. This eternal distance realm controls living beings with drugs. It's really a different approach to the same goal. The Realm Master liked to whitewash peace and liked to deceive himself. Jun Changshao couldn't say anything, but the warriors who were forcibly fed drugs almost all came from other planes. They might have realized this situation, so they resisted and said that they weren't crazy and didn't need to take drugs. They weren't crazy. It was the world that was crazy. This Realm Master is a bit interesting. Jun Changshao said, for the so-called great unity of the world, brainwashing living beings to worship themselves, so that they can help each other. Sigh. The system said, the universe is big, there are all kinds of strange things. Jun Changshao looked at the most magnificent building in the city, touched his chin and said, let's go and meet this weirdo. With the spirit of concealment, he could really do whatever he wanted. Even if he swaggered on the main street, he wouldn't be discovered. Luxurious palace. Dozens of brocade-robed warriors were neatly arranged. They were like civil and military officials, their eyes flashing with reverence and worship. Obviously, they had all been brainwashed. Reporting to my master. An old man walked out of the group and bowed. Yesterday, there was no fighting in my eternal distance realm, no quarrels, the country is prosperous, the people are peaceful, the weather is good. The dignified man sitting at the head of the table nodded in satisfaction. Feng Shanya. The current realm master of eternal distance realm. Jian Guishu had a life and death friendship with him. Not only was this man dignified, but he was also full of righteousness. If one didn't have a god's perspective, who would believe that he had already pledged his allegiance to the celestial demonic emperor and even did such a ridiculous thing as forcefully bringing peace to the entire plane? His subordinates continued to report. Generally speaking, the public security and general atmosphere were good. There was no killing and looting, no fighting and scheming. The entire eternal distance domain was stable and peaceful. Now that he was being controlled, as long as he wasn't stable, it would be like seeing a ghost. You may leave. Feng Shania waved his hand. Yes. Everyone retreated. Feng Shania leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes to rest. He said proudly, this is the world I want. A world without souls. Suddenly, a voice sounded in the hall. Who? Feng Shania suddenly opened his eyes and looked at the figure walking out from the corner of the palace. His expression changed again and finally settled on joy. He said, Senior Sword Saint. Jian Guishu smiled bitterly. You still remember this old man? Senior, you have taught me many things. I will always remember them. Feng Shania stood up and expressed his respect. However, Jian Guishu shook his head and said, I have taught you how to be a person, but I have never taught you to treat living beings as less than human. Senior, why do you say that? Feng Shania asked blankly. Jian Guishu said, were the group of warriors who went out just now controlled by you with drugs? That's right. Feng Shania's answer was frank and magnanimous, which was worthy of his righteous face. Were they willing? Did they resist? Jian Guishu asked. Feng Shania said, they don't need to be willing, and they don't need to resist, because it is the duty of every living being to maintain the peace of the entire plane. Jian Guishu frowned and said, they have lost their souls and reason, and are like puppets at the mercy of others. Is this peace meaningful? Yes. Feng Shania said, at least there are no dirty thoughts, and everyone knows respect. Jian Guishu was completely speechless. The former youth had embarked on the path of evil. Humans are humans because they have self-awareness and the right to choose. You have deprived them of all this and let them whitewash the peace according to your wishes. It is no different from being dead. Jian Guishu said angrily. Sigh. Feng Shania sighed and said, even Senior Sword Saint doesn't understand me. Understand my ass. Jian Guishu might be angry that the once righteous youth was now using extreme means to control a plane, and he could not control his emotions. Senior, do you remember that I swore to be a dragon slayer back then? Feng Shania said. Jian Guishu said, the dragon was slain by you, but you yourself became an evil dragon. No. Feng Shania shook his head and said, my belief has never changed. In my lifetime, I will create a world of unity, without grudges and vengeance. But, when I killed the evil dragon to save the world, I could not change the various bad habits of living beings. They were still dominated by greed, still dominated by emotions, and fighting and killing were happening every moment. At this point, Feng Shania's expression was pained. Humans are not saints, and will naturally be trapped by selfish thoughts, Jian Guishu said. So? Feng Shania said, I have to find a way to wipe out the selfish thoughts in their hearts, so that they will know their place and be good people, so that the entire plane will be peaceful and worry-free. He really wanted to change, and there was no selfishness. It was just that because it was too extreme, he chose extreme means. Back then, many people had opposed it, but in the end, they were all brainwashed. So? Jian Guishu said coldly, you joined the Sky Demonic Emperor? No. Feng Shania said, it's cooperation. Jian Guishu almost vomited blood. This guy did not hesitate to collude with the Sky Demonic Emperor for the so-called world of unity, and now he was still speaking with a righteous attitude. Did he not realize that he was wrong? Senior Sword Saint. Feng Shania said proudly, the Sky Demonic Emperor gave me a way to get rid of the distracting thoughts of living beings, helping me fulfill my former dream of making the entire plane a world of unity. That's right. Jian Guishu said indifferently, you succeeded, but you also helped the villain do evil. I have reached an agreement with the Sky Demonic Emperor. He will not come to harm the eternal distance world, and the living beings here can enjoy eternal peace. Feng Shania said with a solemn gaze, did I do wrong? Jian Guishu was speechless. His extreme personality gave rise to extreme values. Clap clap. At this moment, applause rang out. Jun Changshao walked out of the darkness, clapping his hands lightly, and a harmless smile on his lips. Who are you? Feng Shania asked, but he was puzzled. The outside of the hall was heavily guarded. How did these two sneak in unknowingly? Senior Sword Saint's friend. Jun Changshao said. Oh. Feng Shania relaxed his vigilance. Sector Lord Feng. Jun Changshao sat down without hesitation, then crossed his legs, put his hands on his knees, and said, Jun dares not to agree with what you said just now. Oh? The living beings of a plane will continue to grow stronger precisely because they have independent thoughts. Now that you control all of them, it is tantamount to stifling their imagination and creativity. Jun Changshao said. Independent thoughts will only cause more killing. Feng Shania said. Jun Changshao said, controlling them like walking corpses will only cause the plane to gradually decline, and even be at the mercy of others. If all living beings work together, who dares to bully us? Celestial Demon Emperor. I have reached an agreement with him. We will not invade each other's territory. Only a lunatic like you would believe this kind of lie to a 3-year-old child. Jun Changshao mocked. Who are you scolding? Feng Shania was instantly enraged. Jun Changshao stood up and put one foot on the chair. He pointed a finger at him and said angrily, you've turned a good plane into a walking corpse, and you're saying that you're trying to build a world of unity. You're not only crazy, but you're also a big idiot. Jian Guishu broke down and thought to himself, did this guy come here to scold me? Don't humiliate me. And don't humiliate my ideals. If you want to build a world of unity, you must first consider the living being's thoughts, respect their right to choose, and not use despicable means to control them, so as to achieve the peace you want. I can tell you very responsibly now. Jun Changshao slammed the table and said, the peace of this plane is only your peace, it is only your wishful thinking. If you don't believe me, let them regain their senses, and ask them openly if they are willing to be controlled, if they are willing to help you whitewash the peace. You don't dare, you are afraid. Before Fang Shania could say anything, Jun Changshao walked over aggressively, pointed at his nose and said, you are afraid that the false peace will be destroyed immediately after the living beings have souls. Damn it, since there is evil in a plane, there must be good. Since there is evil, there must be good. This is an unchanging law. You forcefully erase the evil, and use drugs to control living beings, but you don't know that what you are doing is the greatest evil. At the point where he was agitated, spittle flew everywhere. Jian Guishu was dumbfounded. He didn't expect Jun Patriarch to be so eloquent. Of course, Goshen's achievements today were all because of his mouth. The content was all made up. Plop. Fang Shania sat down. At this moment, his mind was filled with evil, and good from Jun Changxiao's glib tongue. To put it bluntly, he was dumbfounded. Bah! Jun Changxiao spat out a mouthful of thick phlegm, rubbed his feet hard, and said, you are just a lunatic living in a fairy tale, holding the souls of thousands of living beings to accompany you here to act out a peaceful and worry-free show. Act, wah. That word kept ringing in Fang Shania's ears, gradually disturbing his state of mind. In the end, he couldn't help but spit out blood. It made people spit blood. This skill of talking was extremely terrifying. Chapter 1942. Fang Shania vomited blood. Some people suspected that Jun Changshao had seriously injured his opponent by rapping. Otherwise, Goshen really relied on his mouth to cause damage to the other party. In fact, Fang Shania had been living in his own play until today when he was exposed by Jun Changshao. He could cover his ears and steal a bell. Or the emperor's new clothes. All in all, for this play, all the creatures in the whole plane had lost their souls and minds to play along. A play was a play after all. Even if they were deeply involved in the play, there would always be a day when they would hit the board and shout "Ka." Unfortunately, Jun Changshao was the one who would hit the board and shout "Ka," and he was the kind who would mercilessly hit the depths of the soul. No! Fang Shania sat down, covered his face with both hands, and roared, "This is not a play." Jun Changshao shook his head and said, "Are you still stubborn? Clap." He clapped his hands. Tap, tap, tap. Several high-level officials who had left earlier came in. They knelt on the ground with tears streaming down their faces and advised, "Sector Master, repent and be saved." Fang Shania was dumbfounded. Jun Changshao said, "Jun has helped them get rid of the drugs control." Fang Shania's eyes were filled with astonishment. The drug was given by the Sky Devil Emperor, who claimed that there was no antidote. How could it be easily neutralized by others? This kind of drug that controlled others' thoughts was indeed a bit tricky. If it was someone from the medical hall who treated it, there might not be any good way. But in the eyes of Miao Saifeng, a poison expert, it was nothing more than changing a few more ways to fight poison with poison. The sect of all times was like a baby eagle waiting to be fed, needing Go Sheng to feed it bit by bit. Now that the baby eagle had grown up, not only could it soar in the world, but it could also help Jun Changshao solve problems to show its value. In this era, I was fortunate to meet the sect of all times, and the sect of all times was even more fortunate to meet me in this era. You can ask them if they are willing to control their souls or continue to play along with you, Jun Changshao said. Fang Shania was silent. Actually, he didn't need to ask to know the answer. Otherwise, he wouldn't have fed them medicine in the past. Humans have to experience many hardships in this world. The only thing we can do is to move forward unswervingly. Even if the scenery along the way isn't as beautiful as we imagined, we still have to go on, Jun Changshao said. Fang Shania remained silent. Changing a person, or changing the world, is destined to take a long time. You can't take shortcuts, go down the wrong path, or use deceiving methods to control the people of the world to achieve the effect you pursue, because Jun Changshao said in a profound tone, this is meaningful to you, but it's meaningless to everyone else. Go Sheng was inhumane when he was being despicable. When he was serious, he wasn't human either. Jian Guishu said, Realm Lord Fang, please turn back and be saved. Repent and be saved? Fang Shania stood up slowly and said, I've already given my soul to the celestial demonic emperor. There's no turning back. What? Jian Guishu's expression changed drastically. Ha ha ha. Fang Shania laughed and said, just as you said, this is a show. Just let it continue. Buzz. The hall flickered with light, and layers of formations sealed it. Anyone who tries to stop this show, Fang Shania said with a cold gaze, must die. All right. Jun Changshao said, this guy is hopeless. He thought that by relying on his own words, he could make him turn back and be saved, thus avoiding a military conflict and saving the world peacefully. In the end, he still failed, and even turned the previous chapter into a meaningless hydrology. Realm Lord, several higher-ups had pained expressions. They had begun to follow Fang Shania a long time ago, hoping to assist him in creating a world of unity. But later, they went to extremes, and it was too late to dissuade him. The current Hengyuan realm is what we used to yearn for the most. Why are you against it? Fang Shania said with a ferocious expression. One of the higher-ups said sorrowfully, turning all living beings into puppets that can be controlled, this is not the peace we used to imagine. You've changed, Fang Shania said disappointedly. It's the Realm Lord who has changed. Everyone shouted with tears streaming down their faces. Fang Shania raised his hand, and energy gradually gathered in his palm. He said coldly, if your path is different, then die. Jian Guishu saw that the former youth was still stubborn, and the pain in his heart grew stronger. It's not that your path is different. Jun Changshao said indifferently, it's that you've been on the wrong path since the beginning. Brat, don't argue. Jian Guishu clenched his hands tightly and smashed them all around. Boom! The sealed hall suddenly shook, and the surrounding environment also changed along with the spatial fluctuations. Everyone felt as if they were in the starry sky of the universe. Jun Patriarch. Jian Guishu sent a sound transmission, this is a sacred art that Fang Shania comprehended. It's called the Great Unity World. Even the name is like that. He's really gone mad, Jun Changshao said. So? Jian Guishu said, that's why it's so extreme. Whoosh whoosh. Fang Shania, who was floating above the Great Unity World, raised his right hand, and boundless energy gathered in his palm. He said, I will not tolerate anyone questioning the peace and prosperity I created. Jun Changshao took out the Shenyuan divine sword and said indifferently, only those with weak hearts will live in a play. This is not a play. It's a play. No. Yes. No. The two of them were getting closer and closer, and they were about to spit at each other. Brat, I won't argue with you. Since you dare to question this peace and prosperity, then, go and die. Fang Shania suddenly waved his hand, and the energy that he had been accumulating whizzed over. Jun Changshao was already prepared. The moment the other party attacked, he directly slashed over with the Shenyuan divine sword. Boom, the energy and sword chi collided, and the resulting shockwaves instantly filled the sealed Great Unity World, forcing Jian Guishu and the others to circulate their energy to block, so as to avoid being affected by the two forces. What bullshit peace and prosperity! Jun Changshao did not attack Fang Shania. He gathered his energy in his sword and slashed at the surrounding space. He roared, you're all fucking deceiving yourselves. Swish! Swish! The sword chi crisscrossed, cutting through space. As Jun Changshao's attack frequency was too fast, and the Shenyuan divine sword was sharp enough, the surrounding space could not withstand it. It was instantly cut into pieces and exploded. Swish, 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 swish. Jian Guishu and a few higher-ups who had regained their senses took the opportunity to fly out and then hover in midair. Boom, boom. Boom, boom, boom. Jun Changshao and Fang Shania fought in the air. Their strength was about the same, and the battle was in full swing. The special effects were also quite good. Below, the residents of the major cities noticed. Because their souls were controlled, there was no fluctuation in their eyes. In this so-called peaceful and prosperous world, there was no mutual deception or intrigue, but every living being was like a walking corpse. Take a look. Jun Changshao roared, "This is your world, no life, no life. If I were them, I would rather die than act with you, because this is the script you want, not the script they want." Perhaps in a state of absolute anger, he withdrew the Shenyuan divine sword and used his fist to punch Fang Shania's face again and again, trying to use the shock to correct his crazy brain. Hee hee hee. Suddenly, a strange laughter sounded, so lively. Ga. Jun Changshao stopped and looked up with a frown. He saw that the sky had been torn apart, and 4 strange-looking creatures slowly appeared. Not good. Jian Guishu frowned, 8 heavenly dragons. It was acceptable if 1 came, but 4 came. He was afraid that there would be big trouble. Chapter 1943. Jun Changshao was trying to wake Fang Shania up with his fist when 4 8th Division heavenly dragons appeared out of nowhere. It was very disappointing, very disappointing. However, Jun Changshao understood. Since Fang Shania had sold his soul to the Sky Demon Emperor, it was normal for his subordinates to come. But in reality, the Realm Lord of the Eternal Distance Domain covered his face and asked in surprise, "Why are you here?" "Oh? He didn't call them here." Realm Lord Fang. A tall 8th Division heavenly dragon said faintly, "We are here to recruit martial artists under the orders of the Sky Demon Emperor." This person was King Jia. The 3 beside him were King Pisha, King Luluo, and King Moyan. Although their appearances and names were different, their common point was that they were equally strong and belonged to the upper class of the heavenly secret realm. Recruit? Fang Shania frowned and said, "What do you mean?" "Recently, there have been many forces opposing the Sky Demon Emperor. We are a little short of manpower, so we want to borrow some soldiers from you." King Jia's tone was matter-of-fact, as if he owed him something. Fang Shania was unhappy. Although his mentality was very extreme, his motive was for the living beings to live a peaceful and worry-free life. Naturally, he couldn't tolerate being used as soldiers. Soldiers were not so bad. He was just afraid that they would be used as cannon fodder. In fact, the Sky Demon Emperor had cultivated a large number of soldiers and didn't care about using martial artists from other planes. However, many of them had been destroyed recently, and it was a little painful. Especially not long ago. He sent elites to the Star Spirit domain, but only 4 of them returned. His warships and army were all lost. Sorry. Fang Shania refused, "No. As my emperor said, Realm Lord Fang loves your people like your children." King Jia wasn't surprised and said, "But we have a duty. Since we are here today, we must take all the martial artists away." "All?" Fang Shania was angry. Sigh. Jun Changshao said, "Realm Lord Fang, haven't you realized? Whether it's you or the Eternal Distance Domain, in the eyes of the old dog Sky Demon Emperor, you are just pawns that he can come and go with a wave of his hand." "Old dog?" King Jia's eyes darkened. "How dare you humiliate my emperor? Do you have any objections?" Jun Changshao asked indifferently. Seeing how arrogant he was, the 4 8th Division heavenly dragons were furious. "Go back and tell the Sky Devil Emperor." At this time, Fang Shania spoke up, "My Eternal Distance realm does not participate in any war. If you want to borrow troops, please go to another realm." Someone had called the celestial demonic emperor an old dog, which had already made the four of them very angry. Now that they had been rejected again, the anger in their stomachs could be described as overwhelming. Fong Shania. King Jia said angrily, "Did I give you face?" "Then, big brother." King Pisha said, "My emperor said that there is no need to discuss the matter of borrowing troops with him." "I almost forgot." King Jia suppressed his anger and sneered, "Realm Lord Fong, do you think we can't take it away if you don't lend it to us?" "What do you mean?" Fong Shania frowned. Shwa. King Jia unhurriedly took out an exquisite little bell, and then gently shook it as he said, "Beings of the eternal distance domain, heed my command. Quickly come and see me." Ding dang. Ding dang. The bells rang out, and visible ripples spread out through the entire realm until they touched the living beings in the city, causing them to fly up without hesitation. Shio shio shio. Shio shio shio. In every city, in every region, the eternal distance domain warriors gathered and lined up neatly between heaven and earth. Their eyes were empty and lifeless, and they had truly become walking corpses. This, Fong Shania was dumbfounded. "Don't you understand?" Jun Changshao shrugged and said, "The medicine you gave them can be controlled by another power." Kakik. King Jia put his hands on his waist and laughed strangely. "Do you really think my emperor is helping you build the great unity realm? Stop dreaming." Crack. Fong Shania clenched his fists, and his eyes were bloodshot. Although he was extreme, he was not a fool. At this moment, he already understood. "Help me, it's fake." The real purpose was that when the Sky Devil Emperor needed cannon fodder, he could take away all the living beings of his realm anytime and anywhere. Sigh. Jun Changshao sighed and said, "Not only are you making the living beings act with you, but you are also selling themselves and their souls to the devil. It is not an exaggeration to say that you are a sinner of the eternal distance domain and even the upper universe. I just want to build the great unity realm. I just want them to be safe and worry-free." Fong Shania roared. He reiterated his dream again, but now it seemed so laughable. "That's not important." Jun Changshao said, "The important thing is that the show is over." "That's right. The show of peace and worry-free was over because the actors were all controlled by someone else. Because the living beings of the eternal distance domain acted as extras, the show could continue. Now that only Fong Shania was left, it became a meaningless one-man show. "Kid!" King Jia said coldly, "Who are you? Why are you talking so much?" Swoosh! Jun Changshao swung his sleeves, sat in the air, crossed his legs, and proudly introduced himself, Patriarch of the Sect of all times, Jun Changshao. Sect of all times? The 4-8 Division Heavenly Dragons laughed disdainfully. This kid looked very arrogant, but the name of his sect was even more arrogant. Wait. Sect of all times, Jun Changshao. Swoosh! In an instant, King Jia and the others quickly gathered together and assumed attacking stances. They exclaimed in unison, "So it's you." Surprised? King Jia and the others' expressions became serious. They were indeed surprised to meet the person that the Sky Demon Emperor hated the most in the eternal distance domain. "Brother Na." King Luluo said telepathically, "Take this guy's head and we can report back." "Don't be careless." King Jia said in a low voice. "Since this kid can kill Dora King and the others, his strength is definitely not below ours." The more arrogant they were earlier, the more cautious they were now. They had no choice. 4 of the 8 Division Heavenly Dragons had died in Goshing's hands. If the remaining 4 did not take him seriously, they would be given the intelligence-reducing halo. "Go back and tell that old dog Sky Demon Emperor," Jun Changshao said indifferently, "the Sect of all times has taken a liking to the eternal distance domain. Don't you dare touch it." "Humph," King Jia said coldly, "who do you think you are?" Swoosh! At this moment, Jun Changshao suddenly leaned over and swung the Shenyuan Divine Sword. Whoosh whoosh! Shi Jingxian returned to her artifact spirit form and a powerful sword aura spread out. The video was played in slow motion. One could clearly see Jun Changxiao's cold eyes and every strand of his hair fluttering in the wind. One could also clearly see the shock on King Jia's face as he moved his body in a sorry state. Swoosh! The scene returned to normal. The sharp sword swept past the tip of the nose. Pht! King Jia dodged beautifully, but King Imoyun's shoulder was cut. Blood spurted out. He stood there in a daze and roared in his heart, "Brother Na, sell me." P.S. The I button is malfunctioning. There might be some ridiculous typos in the text. Chapter 1944. In this period of time, although there was no description of Jun Changxiao's realm, but after fighting with many upper-class Heaven's secret realm, he had accumulated a wealth of experience, so when he suddenly attacked, there would be blood. Those who played with the sword paid attention to 3 words: fast, ruthless, and accurate. In this aspect, Gou Sheng had achieved the pinnacle, causing Jian Guishu to gasp in amazement. King Jia, who had dodged, broke out in cold sweat. If his reaction speed was not fast enough, the one injured would definitely be him and not King Imoyun. Fortunately. At the same time, he and his companions also deeply realized that this patriarch of the sect of all times was indeed extraordinary. No wonder someone as strong as King Duola was killed by him alone. When an expert made a move, one would know whether they were real or not. At this moment, King Jia and the other 3 definitely did not think that they had the ability to fight Jun Changxiao alone. Fortunately, they had come to borrow troops this time, and everyone had come. As the saying goes, 2 fists are no match for many fists. They did not believe that they could not deal with him alone. Thinking of this, King Jia and the others immediately had confidence. Sorry. Jun Changxiao raised his sword and pointed at them, saying indifferently, "I said the wrong thing just now. You won't have the chance to go back and tell Sky Devil Emperor, because you will all die here today." Perhaps because he had taken down the Star Spirit Realm, it gave him the capital to be arrogant. Shameless boasting. King Jia and the other 3's eyes were filled with anger. He had followed the celestial demonic emperor to the north and south, and had never encountered such an arrogant guy. Brat! King Pisa sneered, and said, "You seem to have not realized your situation." What situation? At this moment, not only were there 4 of them, but they also controlled the power of the entire eternal boundary. As long as they gently shook the bell, the millions of martial artists gathered in the air would swarm forward. Even if they used the human wave tactic, they would still be exhausted to death. You mean these walking corpses controlled by drugs? Jun Changxiao shrugged, and said, "Sorry, they are nothing in my eyes." Cut the crap. King Jia said coldly, "Die." Whoosh whoosh. Perhaps they had planned this beforehand. The 4 of them burst forth at the same time, sending out black light waves at the same time. 4 powerful forces came crashing over with the momentum of toppling mountains and overturning seas. Jun Changxiao appeared very calm and did not even take any precautions. Because, void-breaking sword. A sharp and unparalleled sword radiance flew from behind and collided with the first wave of energy. The 2 forces cancelled each other out and turned into flowing lights that filled the sky. Sword returning to ruin slowly landed beside Jun Changxiao. 9 seemingly real yet illusory sharp sword cheese hung behind him like a peacock spreading its tail. 9 Swords Transformation Technique. It was one of the famous sword techniques of the ruins of End Sword Saint. Since joining the Jun Alliance, many people only remembered an old man who was trying his best to show off his surprise, but they had forgotten his true identity and strength. Swish! Swish! At the same time, another 5 flowing lights flew over. They worked together to break through the second wave of energy and stood in front of Jun Changxiao like 5 door gods. When the light screen gradually weakened, Lu Qianqian, Yixingchen, Xiao Ziji, Su Xiaoma, and He Wudi appeared. Night Emperor understood the meaning of reincarnation and broke through to the divine secret realm. He was barely qualified to fight against upper-class opponents. He Wudi was even more so. Although he was still at the half-step level, his control and utilization of the power of immortal music was the best in the sect of all times. He could make up for the difference in cultivation level. Xiao Ziji and Su Xiaoma were in an awkward situation. The two of them had not reached a higher cultivation level, and their understanding of immortal music was not as good as the last disciples. When facing upper-class divine secret realm experts, they could only be beaten up. It was not a big problem. This time, they came with their fellow disciples. One of them was in the jungler position, while the other was in the support position. The damage output was left to the few C positions. There was also Lu Chanshan. Not only had this disciple entered the divine secret realm, but she had also signed a contract with an SSS rank general. Her combat power was not inferior to Yi Xingqian and He Wudi. It could be said that they were currently the strongest five-man team in the sect of all times. If they were to be divided, He Wudi would be the top laner, Su Xiaoma would be the jungler, Lu Chanshan would be the mid laner, and Yi Xingqian and Xiao Ziji would be the bottom laner. If they were to participate in the S-Series tournament in Shanghai this year, they would definitely crush all the other teams and win the third championship for China. Wang! Wang! Suddenly, the space in front of them distorted and layers of barriers intertwined. Boom! The third wave of energy slammed into it. Although it tried to break through the barrier, it did not succeed until it exhausted all its energy. It could only turn into nothingness. The people in front of Jun Changshao were the upper echelons of the sect of all times. They were the chief elder Gu Zhaoxi, the peak elders Ryu Sinan, Gong Sun Ho, and Bailey Qianqiu, the two guardians, the black and white Rakshasa, and the veteran executive elders Jiang Ye, Ding Xingwang, and Gong Sun Hao. Whoosh whoosh. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. His realm exploded, and his aura shook the sky. In terms of overall strength, other than Jun Changshao, no one in the sect of all times could compete with the 8th-division Heavenly Dragon alone. However, when they gathered together, they might not be inferior. Who was afraid of who in a group fight? Jun Changshao wanted to summon the elites of the Night King Alliance to deal with the fourth wave of energy, but he saw Fang Shania in front of him. He pushed out his palms and broke the black light wave. King Jia said coldly, "Realm Lord Fang, are you rebelling against our emperor?" "You have no right to order my people around," Fang Shania said with a cold gaze. His original intention was to let the living beings stay away from war and live a peaceful life, although his actions were too extreme. Was it bad? Not really. Just as Jun Changshao said, he had embarked on an evil path. If he was willing to turn back, he could still be redeemed. Humph! King Jia sneered. The moment you gave your soul to our emperor, the living beings of the eternal distance domain were no longer your people. Fang Shania's face turned ferocious. At this moment it was unknown whether he had regained his rationality or walked out of his extreme thoughts, but one thing was certain, he regretted selling his soul to the celestial devil emperor. Jun Patriarch. Fang Shania lowered his head. His voice was filled with sorrow. I was once disappointed and lost all sense of direction. I only found my answer when I met you. A smile appeared on Jian Guishu's face. The youth of the past had finally awakened. Turning back is worth more than gold, Jun Changshao said. The system thought for a while and roared, it's clearly a prodigal son turning back. It's the same. Same my ass. Just as the two were showing off their daily affection, Fang Shania slowly raised his head and slowly spread his hands. A trace of bitterness appeared at the corner of his mouth. Selling my soul to the devil, there's no turning back. Jun Changshao frowned. This guy, Jun Patriarch. Senior Sword Sage. The living beings of the eternal distance domain are in your hands from now on. As soon as he said this, Jian Guishu had a bad feeling. He was about to persuade him when he heard Fang Shania's tragic roar. The great unity domain is eternal and everlasting. Whoosh! He disappeared into thin air. Whoosh 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 whoosh. The 4-8 Division Heavenly Dragon standing opposite him also disappeared. Boom! Then, a deafening roar suddenly came from outside the eternal distance domain. The internal space system was impacted and immediately swept up a storm. Jun Changshao stood in midair. His spiritual sense was integrated into the universe. He saw a huge mushroom cloud caused by the big explosion in the distance. He clenched his fist and said, "Is he stupid?" On this day, the Eternal Distance Domain Lord, Feng Shanaya, used his self-created magic to integrate the Celestial Devil Emperor and the other 8 Division Heavenly Dragons into the Great Unity Domain and transferred them to the vast universe. Then, he detonated his own soul and body to redeem them. I once fell into the endless darkness. I wanted to struggle, but I couldn't free myself. I was like you, like him, like the wild grass and wild flowers. I was desperate and yearning. Chapter 1945. No one expected that Feng Shanaya would suddenly use a theurgy to bring the 4-8 Division Heavenly Dragons into the universe and self-destruct his soul. Not everyone had the courage to do such a thing, unless they were forced into a dead end. That was right. Feng Shanaya was in a dead end because he had sold his soul to the Celestial Demonic Emperor. There was no shore behind him, only hell. Therefore, while he was still alive and had yet to be captured by the other party, it was better to sacrifice himself for redemption. Was he stupid? Jun Changshao thought so. But in fact, he was not stupid. He had decisively used a theurgy and self-destructed. Saving himself was one thing, but the other was to save the thousands of lives in the Eternal Distance Domain. Judging from the situation just now, Jun Changshao and the 4-8 Division Heavenly Dragons would definitely fight to the death. The millions of people under their control would definitely participate in the battle as well. No matter who won in the end, they would suffer heavy casualties. Feng Shanaya did not want to see this, so he could only choose to sacrifice himself. The theurgy instantly enveloped the 4 and did not give them a chance to ring the bell. This was a good decision. As for death, Feng Shanaya was very open-minded. Since he had chosen to save the people, it was equivalent to offending the Celestial Demonic Emperor. Even if Jun Changshao and Jian Guishu could deal with the 4, he would still die if the news reached the Celestial Demonic Emperor. Since he was going to die anyway, he had to die a worthy death. Feng Shanaya chose to self-destruct his soul because he had a careful analysis. He did not fight with the enemy on a whim. He was the sinner of the Eternal Distance Domain. But he also chose to die for redemption. Jian Guishu was silent for a long time until the mushroom cloud gradually weakened. Then he said, living forever in the great unity world he created may be a kind of relief for him. Sigh. Jun Changshao sighed. Ha! Suddenly, he found that 4 slightly embarrassed figures gradually appeared in the huge vortex formed by the explosion. He was surprised. They're not dead. The upper-class Celestial Realm Masters chose to self-destruct after using a theurgy. The explosion had completely collapsed. Not only did it form a huge vortex, but it also gradually turned into a black hole that swallowed everything around it. Wah! Wah! At the edge of the explosion, King Jia and the other 3 flew out with difficulty. Then, they couldn't suppress their injuries and spat out blood. Their faces were paler than the previous. As the right-hand man of the Celestial Demonic Emperor, his strength could withstand the test. Naturally, he would not be killed by Feng Shanaya's soul self-explosion. However, he was definitely injured. The tragedy was, this was the second time they had been blasted into such a sorry state. First time. That's right, it was the explosion of the astral spirit world. These 4 brothers were really unlucky. If they weren't bombed, then they were on the way to being bombed. They couldn't hide no matter how hard they tried. Fortunately, it was just a heavenly secret realm soul explosion. Its power is far inferior to that of a top-tier plane. We will be able to recover after resting for a few days. King Jia rejoiced. Rest for a few days? You're thinking too much. Shwa! The four of them immediately assumed the stances of dragons, snakes, tigers, and cranes. They looked vigilantly at Jun Changshao, who had appeared out of nowhere behind them, their eyes flickering with uncertainty. Before they were bombed, they were very confident. Now that they were injured, they were a little weak. Of course, they were weak because not only was Jun Changshao standing in front of them, but also Jian Guishu and the upper echelons and disciples of the sect of all times. The pitiful four were already in a sorry state, and now they were surrounded. Don't panic. There's still the bell. King Jia hurriedly raised his hand, but he was stunned. Where's the bell? Where's my bell? Hey! Jun Changshao waved the thing in his hand and said, "Are you looking for it?" "You," King Jia said in disbelief, "when did you steal it?" The word steal was very appropriate. Jun Changshao had used the spirit of concealment to sneak up on him while he was vomiting blood. Then, he casually grabbed his waist. Before Realm Lord Fong left, he entrusted the living beings of the eternal distance domain to me. Naturally, I won't let them be hurt. Without the bell, King Jia's expression was extremely ugly. He and his companions were injured, and the treasure used to borrow troops was also gone. What should he do? Simple, run. Let me make one thing clear. It's not that Jun Changshao is strong, but that we were bombed and are in no condition. He was very good at finding excuses for himself. Unfortunately, if Jun Changshao let the injured escape, he would be too ashamed to face Sect Master Wang in the underworld. So he immediately waved his sleeves and shouted, "Prepare to catch the demons." Swish! Swish! The upper echelons and disciples of the sect of all times immediately rushed forward. Damn it! King Jia roared, "Fight them, boom!" Before he could finish, he woody punched him in the face, and he was instantly sent flying. Because of the power of the immortal sound, his injuries immediately worsened, and his head buzzed. Brother Na! Boom! 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 The other 3 8 Division Heavenly Dragons didn't have time to care about King Jia, because the care of the sect of all times immediately came. Jun Changshao also joined in. He didn't use any gorgeous martial arts, nor did he use the awesome heaven and earth attribute. He just used the most simple and unadorned fan de biao style to grab with both hands. Patriarch took the lead. The upper echelons and disciples also became unscrupulous. Jian Guishu's mouth twitched. Was this a battle? She was simply a shrew. Fong Shania severely injured the 4 8 Division Heavenly Dragons in a way that destroyed their souls, protected the people under their control, and also helped Jun Changshao avoid a fierce battle. He successfully put them on the ground, beaten them black and blue, and beaten them until they were foaming at the mouth. At this point, the most tragic title was taken by the 4 brothers. Although King Dwelu's head was chopped off, he had at least fought with Jun Changshao. On the other hand, they were first bombed and then beaten up. They couldn't fight back during the whole process. Creak! In Tianyuan Prison Pagoda, King Jia and the others, who were half dead, were thrown into the prison cell. When the light disappeared with the door closed, what awaited them was Aria's love. Hengyuan Realm. Jun Changshao shook the bell. Whoosh! Whoosh! The millions of martial artists floating in the sky fell down one after another. Their eyes were still empty. They didn't know that the Realm Master had died. Jun Patriarch. Jian Guishu said, "Please help them remove the drugs control." Okay. Jun Changshao nodded and said, "I will." Whether Fong Shania was wrong or not was no longer important as his soul had dispersed. Since the Realm Master had handed over the creatures of this plane to him before leaving, he must live up to his dying wish. On the same day, the treatment team headed by Miao Saifeng sat in the square of Hengyuan City and restored the sanity and freedom of the martial artists who were under the drugs' control one by one. Realm Master, when the people who regained their sanity learned that the Realm Master had chosen to sacrifice himself to fight against the demonic emperor, they all knelt outside the palace in tears. Many people were fed the drug in a daze and didn't know the reason. In order to protect Fang Shania's last dignity, Jun Changshao didn't intend to tell them the truth. There was something. Let it go with the wind. Jun Patriarch. On the mountain peak, after Jian Guishu remembered the late Fang Shania, he asked, "Is there really a peaceful and worry-free world in this world?" Jun Changshao was silent for a moment and said, "Maybe." Chapter 1946. There were too many creatures in the Hengyuan world. The medical team led by Miao Saifeng worked for more than a month to restore their consciousness. Gradually, the plane had regained its former vitality. Only creatures with self-awareness could bring the whole world to life. On the contrary, it was like a pool of stagnant water before. Jun Changshao sat on the mountain with his hands clasped together. He frowned slightly as if he was thinking about something. Realm Lord Fang entrusted this plane to me before he died. I must not let him down. It's decided. Take all creatures into the eternal world and work to build a unified world. The system complained, "You're just greedy for other people's planes. Don't be so sanctimonious." "No." Jun Changshao said seriously, "I'm saving them." The Celestial Devil Emperor would never allow the Hengyuan world to fall out of his control. This world was in a dangerous situation. Taking them into the eternal world was undoubtedly the best result. What's more, after the integration of the two origins, the area greatly increased. It needed more creatures to fill and develop. Wait. Jun Changshao's eyes lit up and said, "You can also integrate the origin of the Hengyuan world. The creatures living in it will be like returning to their home." The system was speechless. "Host, are you going to integrate all the first-class planes in the upper universe?" "If the strength allows." Jun Changshao said, "I have no objection." Bah! The system couldn't help it. It was understandable. After all, the reader's mobile phone screens were already full of saliva at this moment. Jokes aside, Jun Changshao's idea of taking all creatures in the Hengyuan world into the eternal world was not wrong. Because the Celestial Devil Emperor had lost 4 capable people in a row, he would definitely vent his anger on this plane. If he didn't take them in today, they might be in danger tomorrow. Realm Lord Fang. Jun Changshao stood up and said, "I won't let any harm come to your people." Whoosh! Flying up into the sky, he said in a clear voice, "The demonic emperor might come tomorrow. For your safety, please relax your mind." Hearing this, all creatures did as they were told. Without the Realm Lord, they would lose their backbone. At this time, they could only choose to believe in the person who saved them. Whoosh! Swish swish! Because the creatures of the eternal distant world were very cooperative, they were all sent to the eternal world smoothly. Feeling the fusion of the two origins and the birth of a brand new heaven and earth attribute, they all stood there dumbstruck. The level of the eternal distant realm was not low, but compared to this place, it was instantly reduced to dregs. Coming to the eternal world is a great opportunity and fortune for you and the others. Why did he say that? When the new heaven and earth attributes filled the entire eternal world, the creatures who had been sent here before suddenly felt a sense of familiarity. For a moment, all of them burst into tears and had mixed feelings. After the expansion of the plane, it was necessary to expand it, so Li Qingyang and Paige began to get busy again. The fusion of the 3 essences. Jun Changshao stood in the sky, closed his eyes to feel the changes of heaven and earth, and said to himself, "All the values have improved greatly." This value not only referred to the heaven and earth attributes, but also the strength of the space barrier. The stronger the space, the safer it was. At this moment, the overall defense of the eternal world had undergone earth-shaking changes. It was not enough. There was still a long way to go. A safer defense system must be built. Jun Changshao once said that he wanted to take out the eternal world openly, stand proudly in the upper universe, and become a holy land worshipped by all living beings. Therefore, it must be built indestructible. In the formation hall. As soon as Jun Changshao walked in, the eyelids of the Taishian elder twitched crazily. As long as this guy came, nothing good would come out of it. Master. Goshin sat down, tapped his fingers on the table regularly, and then stopped talking. The Taishian elder waited for a while. Seeing that he kept silent, he broke down and said, "If you have something to say, say it quickly. Don't pretend to be mysterious." Master. Jun Changshao said, "I have an idea." Sure enough. One never visits a temple without a cause. Although the Taishian elder was speechless, he still cooperated and said, "What idea?" "The sect of all times can stand between heaven and earth, thanks to your continuous improvement of the sect protecting formation," Jun Changshao said. Of course. The Taishian elder raised his head, and pride was written all over his face. Although he didn't talk much about the sect protecting formation during this time, in fact, he and his formation team had been constantly studying and improving it, and the defense level was rising steadily. Jun Changshao said, "Since the sect of all times has the sect protecting formation, shouldn't the eternal world have the same?" Ga. The muscles on the Taishian elder's face froze. Master. Jun Changshao said seriously, "For the sake of all living beings in the world, please design a bomb protection formation for the eternal world. It will cover all corners of the world. I believe that it will be a great achievement that will be recorded in the annals of history." Great achievements, my ass. The Taishian elder stood up and pointed outside, and shouted with spittle flying, "It's such a big plane, do you want me to die of exhaustion? Capable people do more work." Bullshit, I won't do it. Master, please consider the overall situation. Chapter 1947. That night, the core researchers of the formation hall, who had been resting, were called to the entrance by the Taishian elder. "Grand Elder, it's late. Is there anything important?" Shangwan Xinyao rubbed her eyes, still sleepy. "Yes." The Taishian elder said solemnly, "It's very important." As soon as he said this, everyone's sleepiness disappeared. As a member of the research team of the formation hall, they had encountered too many important things during this period, such as studying the array used on mechas day and night, and various kinds of security systems. In short, they had never stopped on their way to becoming tools. Jun Changshao was proud of them. Life was too short. It was very meaningful to devote limited energy to infinite work. Clap. The Taishian elder put his hands on the sand table representing the eternal world and said seriously, "I just got the order from the patriarch. We have to create a protective array covering the eternal world in the shortest time." "It's not a big problem," a member suddenly stopped and said in surprise, "A protective array covering the eternal world?" He began to misunderstand it as a protective array. "Grand Elder." Someone broke down and said, "How is this possible?" If it was a protective array, they were confident to study it. A large array protecting the entire eternal world was simply, for a moment, everyone looked at the planar sand table that they had just measured, and a strong sense of helplessness rose in their hearts. "Grand Elder." Someone said bitterly, "The eternal world was not small before. Now it has expanded dozens of times. It will take at least dozens of generations to arrange a formation covering the entire plane." "No." The Taishian elder said solemnly, "It will be done by our generation." Despair appeared on everyone's faces. They had begun to imagine that they would spend the rest of their lives studying the formation until they grew old. Before they died, they would hold the hands of their descendants and say weakly, "The formation will be set up soon. Don't forget to tell your ancestors." No, no. They put all their efforts into studying the formation. How could they have time to have children? Interesting. Shangwan Xinyao laughed. Studying the protective array covering the eternal world was tantamount to a fantasy for ordinary people, but it aroused her strong interest. Of course. This will be difficult. But the more difficult it was, the more they had to overcome it. Grand Elder. Shangwan Xinyao asked impatiently, when do we start? Now. All right. The others broke down. However, since it was an order from the patriarch, they had to complete it even if they had to risk their lives. Therefore, they adjusted their mentality and carried all kinds of tools as they entered the space-time pocket. With such a large amount of work, if one did not rely on time acceleration to create it in one's lifetime, it would definitely be a pipe dream. Everyone. Jun Changshao sat on the big locust tree and said seriously, please. Using his disciple as a tool made him feel very pained, but he had to endure it. That was because the happiness of the future could only be obtained by constantly working hard today. Ding! Congratulations to the host for dominating the eternal distant world. You have fulfilled the requirements of the main mission, dominating the eternal distant world. Completion rate, 35%. The living beings that moved in felt the taste of home and gradually adapted to it. The dominating world condition had been completed. As expected. Jun Changshao said, another 15%. After all, the eternal distant domain is a top-level material plane in the upper universe, the system explained. So it's like this. Jun Changshao said with a burning gaze, I only need to dominate 5 more first-class material planes of the same level to complete the main mission. In the past, when he saved the Scarlet Hell world, he was only given a 1% completion rate, which made Gosheng despair. Now, it was more acceptable. Although it's a lot. The system said, but it's also difficult. Is it difficult? Jun Changshao said, why don't I feel it? The system said, you're too arrogant. In fact, from the process of dominating the eternal distant world, it was indeed not difficult. The main reason was that although Feng Shania sold his soul to the Sky Devil Emperor, he was not an evil person in essence. If it was like the Star Spirit world, Jun Changshao would definitely have to use the power of the entire sect to completely conquer it if he wanted to meet the requirements of dominating. Rumble. Rumble. On the expanded land, Paige ran back and forth like an excavator, spitting out foundation after foundation. Li Qingyang sat in the tent and carefully analyzed the blueprint. The bigger the material plane, the more planning. Jun Changshao would occasionally come to inspect and express his concern, and give high praise for their efforts. Master, Paige was moved to tears. He did not eat lunch and got busy under the scorching sun, as if his body had been injected with chicken blood. Crazy work in exchange for rapid progress. City walls were built one by one, buildings were built one by one. On the newly opened land of the eternal world, there were huge changes almost every moment. The material plane was strong. The sect was strong. Therefore, Jun Changshao was looking forward to what form this material plane would eventually become in the upper universe under his and his disciples' efforts. The strongest. The strongest of all time. Whoosh! In the vast universe, the eternal ship cut through the void and headed to the next material plane. Jun Changshao's current strategy was to develop the eternal world, quietly complete the main mission, and then fight the villain. However, would the Sky Devil Emperor, who had lost 4 generals, continue to be indifferent? The answer was, impossible. So, Jun Changshao stroked his chin and said, I might really be the Taishen sage, experiencing life in the lower realm with another identity, or making up for some shortcomings in my cultivation in order to pursue a higher realm of martial arts. Ah, ah, ah. The system roared, those with yellow urine, uremia, and unclean urine, hurry up. Chapter 1948. And then? That's it. Jun Changshao was silent. He thought there would be more to the story, but in the end, the heaven-devouring evil lord was killed by the 7 profound sage. Oh, right. Jian Guishu thought of something and said, it said that the demon left behind an evil secret manual. The inheritor can unify the upper universe and even comprehend the mystery of eternal life. What secret manual? Jun Changshao was interested. I'm not sure. Jian Guishu said, "It's not recorded in the ancient books." Senior, how do you know that the celestial demonic emperor is the descendant of the heaven-devouring evil lord? After Senior Qishuan killed the demon, he left behind a sentence, saying that his descendants will make a comeback in the future. At that time, blood will stain the 9 heavens and bring chaos to the world, Jian Guishu said. Jun Changshao was speechless. Since you know that the descendants of the heaven-devouring evil lord will bring disaster to the universe, why not eliminate them? Jun Patriarch. Jian Guishu said, the future is not only fixed, but also unpredictable. Even a mighty figure like Senior Qishuan can't control it. That's true. Jun Changshao was relieved. Jun Patriarch. Jian Guishu raised his wine cup and said seriously, Senior Qishuan once killed the demon in the endless abyss. This old man hopes that today, you can eliminate the celestial demonic emperor, who is a disaster to the universe. During this period of time, he clearly understood that if the upper universe could usher in the dawn, it would be him and the sect of all times. It was no exaggeration. Jian Guishu already saw Jun Changshao as the hope of the upper universe. I'll do my best. Jun Changshao worshipped the 7 profound sage. Since he had killed a great demon that brought disaster to the world, then the celestial demonic emperor would be handed over to him. In an instant. Go Leftover's entire being seemed to be in a miraculous realm. The incomparably imposing figure slowly turned around and said in a profound tone, Child, the universe that I once protected, I'll entrust it to you today. Jun Changshao cupped his hands and said, Senior, please rest assured. Jun will do his best. Bah! The system said, why is he so dramatic? After the banquet was over, Jun Changshao did not go to sleep. Instead, he sat in the study and pondered over the secret evil technique that Jian Guishu had mentioned. He murmured, if only I could get it from the shop. No problem. The system said, as long as the host is willing to spend reputation points, you will definitely be able to obtain any secret manual in the world. I didn't drink too much. Jun Changshao rolled his eyes and said, why would I believe you? Indeed, the system store would definitely have all kinds of secret manuals, but the key was that he had to be lucky. Otherwise, he would be like a gambler who would fall deeper and deeper, and eventually end up bankrupt. The next day, Jun Changshao first inspected the construction of the city before heading to the space-time mystic realm. The moment he entered, he was shocked. The research team led by the Taishian elder sat cross-legged on the ground. Their hair was disheveled, and their eyes were bloodshot. They looked like they had gone mad. Master, Jun Changshao asked weakly, are you guys all right? He still had the face to ask. If he had not issued a task, would everyone have forgotten to eat and sleep to research? Would they have a mental breakdown? No progress, no progress. The Taishian elder hugged his head and cried out in a hoarse voice. The formation that enveloped the entire plane was not only a huge project, but also involved a lot of technical cores, so the consumption of brain cells was dozens of times more than usual. To this, as the author, I understand and sympathize with it. Because mental work was really tiring, especially when there was no inspiration, one could really only scratch one's ears and cheeks. It was really hard to sleep, and there was even a risk of going bald. Needless to say, most of the entire research team's hair was falling out piece by piece. Either their hairlines were in danger, or they had already formed a Mediterranean Sea. Sigh. Jun Changshao could not bear it and silently took out a few bottles of hair growth agents. Master. He sat down and said seriously, in a world, there was such a nation, in the most difficult era, without any strong technical support, using the abacus to make the ultimate weapon to defend the country and the people, and let the whole world hear the sound of the dragon's roar. What world? Which nation? The Taishian elder asked. That's not the point. Jun Changshao said, the point is, this tells us that no matter how difficult it is, as long as we persevere, as long as we work together, any problem can be solved. Makes sense. The Taishian elder nodded, then got up and gave up his seat. You persevere, you work hard. I also know how to say the words of chicken soup. But back to reality, the realm protection array was really too difficult to study. Come on. Jun Changshao pretended not to see and said, okay. After saying that, he immediately slipped away. Damn. The Taishian elder stared and said, it's easy for you to say that. Grand Elder, we continue to study. Yes. Therefore, the elite geniuses of the array hall continued to study day and night. One by one, the blueprints of the array were outlined and piled up, slowly forming a hill. Studying an array that covered a plane was really too taxing on their brain cells, and the most fundamental reason was that it was difficult to make a breakthrough in technology. For example, how to design the lines and the eyes of the array to support a terrifying super-large array. Just this problem alone had troubled them for a long time, not to mention that they still had to set it up. The amount of work was completely unimaginable. The Taishian elder held a pile of blueprints and cried out in pain, this problem is too difficult. The old homebody, who had created two kinds of mental cultivation methods and developed the technology of Diablo, was almost driven crazy by the realm protection array. For this, Jun Changshao could only come over frequently to comfort him, and even do it himself. But every time he saw the table full of blueprints and the intricate lines and eyes of the array, he suddenly felt dizzy, and then covered his mouth and ran out of the secret realm to vomit. Master. I'm sorry, I'm suffering from trypophobia. Bah! A month later in the outside world. The research team listed the blueprints countless times, and just the discussion alone was no less than hundreds of times, but the result was still no progress. It's not working. Jun Changshao was anxious. With the help of time acceleration, they still couldn't find a clue. If they really studied it for a long time, who knew when? Patriarch. At this moment, Shangguan Xinyao, who had been immersed in thinking, said joyfully, I've thought of a way. What way? Jun Changshao was overjoyed. We can do this, and we can also do this. Because it involved confidential information and to prevent readers from learning it, Shangguan Xinyao's words were automatically encrypted. That's right. The Taishian elder seemed to have been hit in the head and said joyfully, why didn't I think of it? This plan given by Shangguan Xinyao gave the research team a research direction, so they began to actively explore. Can it work? Jun Changshao had doubts. Shangguan Xinyao said, only by relying on this method can we create a super-large array that can support a plane. Jun Changshao thought for a moment and said, okay. It's settled then. Use the plane origin as the eye of the array. Prop up the entire realm protection array. Chapter 1949. The problem that troubled the Taishian elder was how many formation eyes were needed to set up such a large realm protection formation. Formation eye. The soul of the formation. It was crucial to continuously deliver energy and make the front operate normally and reach the level of perpetual motion. The Taishian elder and the research team's initial idea was to set up many formations in the plane and finally connect them to support a huge formation system. It was theoretically feasible. But the eternal world was so big, how many formations did they need to set up? Could they ensure that they were perfectly compatible? The more complicated the program was, the more it needed to be perfect. A little negligence and mistake would waste all previous efforts. So, the Taishian elder was driven crazy. Just when he and the research team were struggling to make progress, Shangguan Xinyao, a disciple of the Lingyan Pavilion of the Sect of all times and the owner of the word wisdom, came down from the sky and proposed a bold idea of using the eternal world origin as the formation eye. The reader said, you finally remembered the forgotten Lingyan Pavilion. When will the other disciples be arranged to go in? It depends on my mood. It was really a bold idea to use the plane origin as the formation eye. The Taishian elder immediately began to seriously discuss with the members. The conclusion was that although shocking, it was theoretically feasible and even the most perfect solution at present. The problem that troubled them was that a large number of formation eyes were needed to support the formation that covered the plane. If the eternal world was used as the formation eye and as a perpetual motion machine, it would not need to be too complicated and could be easily set up. Okay. Jun Changshao said, let's do it. Patriarch Shengguan Xinyao said, the advantage of using the origin as the formation eye is that it can support a super large formation, but it also has a fatal disadvantage. Go ahead. We are bound together for good or ill. With the current size and energy of the Sect of all times' origin, it should be no problem to support a huge formation. However, the two would be closely connected. If either side was damaged, it would backfire on the other side. For example, if the realm protection formation was successfully set up, the plane origin would be damaged if it was broken by external forces during the defense phase. The origin would have problems. The worst-case scenario would be the collapse of heaven and earth. Order would be thrown into chaos, and all living beings would experience doomsday. That's troublesome. Jun Changshao fell into deep thought. The enthusiastic Mr. Taixian and the researchers calmed down one after another. He couldn't gamble. If one array formation was destroyed, he could just repair another one. Dozens of members of the research team sat in front of the table and kept fiddling with the abacus. Their heads were shaking and their tongues were sticking out, trying to make sure that there was no deviation in their work. Su Xiaoma and the others occasionally came in to practice. Seeing their crazy appearance, they all exclaimed, "Oh my God, it's so scary." The calendar hanging in the secret realm was torn off page by page. Time was also ticking away. Plop! A member fell down, his eyelids rolled up and white foam came out of his mouth. Ah! The Taixian old man couldn't bear to see it. He waved his hand and said, "Take him away." The members of the medical hall quickly carried the patient on a stretcher. In the process of sending him away, he was still fiddling with the abacus slowly. It could be seen that he was still working even if he was unconscious. Salute! On the way to the medical peak, the disciples spontaneously stood in 2 rows and watched the hero leave. Snap! Li Tianxian took the opportunity to take a picture that would be passed down forever. Plop! Plop! In the secret realm, the research had reached a critical point. The members who had worked hard for it fell down one after another. No! I can still calculate. Many members were slightly injured, but they were still carried out to take over the treatment. Sitting on a jujube tree in the back mountain, Jun Changshao closed his eyes and said in his heart, "Your efforts and contributions today will be remembered by future generations forever." A few years later, the research drawings piled up in the secret realm were like mountains. There were only a few members left of the formation who persisted in the front line. Ha! Ha ha ha! Wild laughter suddenly came from the piles of drawings. Then the Taixian old man jumped out and said like a madman, "It's done. It's finally done." His head was shiny and his beard was white. It could be seen that the research of the formation made him completely bald. It took a total of 10 years. After more than 3,600 days, hundreds of members of the formation went forward and worked hard one after another. The formation plan based on the origin of the eternal world was completely born today. Every time the future generations read this passage in the records of eternal history, they were all moved by the selfless dedication and the greatness of the ancestors. Swish! Swish! In every city and every corner of the eternal world, disciples of the Sect of all times appeared one after another. They quietly left complex formations in place and then went to the next destination. A few months later, on the main peak of the Sect, Jun Changshao walked out of the hall in formal clothes and stopped in the center of the intricate formation. The research team led by the Taixian old man stood nearby, full of expectation. The formation of the Thunder Rhombus clan is completed. The formation of the Ice Phoenix clan is completed. The formation of the Stone Statue clan is completed. The formation of the Dragon clan is completed. The formation of the Soul clan, after a while. Reporting to the Patriarch. Shangguan Xinyao said in a trembling voice, the formations of all regions, clans, and cities are all activated. Swish! Jun Changshao closed his eyes and connected with the origin of the eternal world through his soul. He said proudly, if miracles have colors, it must be, swish. Swish! 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 In an instant, the entire eternal world seemed to be lit up. All the major cities and clans released towering light and then connected with each other. Buzz! Visible ripples rose from the ground and quickly spread to the sky. Everyone! Listen to the dragon's roar. Shangguan Xinyao, who was sitting in the array hall, checked the data and operation of the formation on the light screen. After it stabilized, she said, reporting to the Patriarch, the barrier protection formation has been activated, successfully. Her voice resounded throughout the sect. It's done. It's done. The members of the array hall burst into an uproar. They raised their arms and shouted. They hugged each other. The excitement and joy in their hearts were 1,000 times stronger than when they broke through to the divine mystery realm. In the excited crowd, the Taishan old man turned around and left slowly with his back hunched. Then he sat on the stone steps in the distance. He wanted to control his emotions. However, tears flowed down from the corners of his eyes. Everyone, listen to my orders. Suddenly, all the creatures in the entire plane turned around and faced the Sect of All Times. The senior members and disciples of the Sect of All Times faced the members of the array hall and the old man sitting on the steps. Show the highest standard of etiquette. Swish! Swish! All the creatures in the eternal world and the disciples of the Sect of All Times put their right hands on their chests in unison. They were saluting the members of the array hall who had contributed for the past 10 years. They were saluting the Grand Elder who had always fought on the front line. Even so, he was still unable to shake the realm-protecting Grand Array. He could be considered to have withstood the test of quality. It's safe now. Jun Changxiao's face was filled with relief. Although the eternal world could be hidden, no one knew whether it would be discovered by the Celestial Devil Emperor. Now that they had set up the realm protection formation in advance, they had some confidence even if they were discovered. What's the next step? Rose of Flowers asked. I think. Jun Changxiao paused for a moment and then said, summon the eternal world and set it up in the upper universe. Rose of Flowers said, this is equivalent to exposing it to the Celestial Devil Emperor. In fact, as far as the current defense of the eternal world was concerned, no plane in the upper universe could break it. But the biggest threat was still the devil who harmed the common people. If it was exposed, it meant that it would be discovered and targeted. I don't want to hide anymore. Jun Changxiao said, I want to fight it fair and square. Hiding was only temporary. With his character, he preferred to rely on his strength to defeat the final big boss. Moreover, Jun Changxiao had an idea. With the eternal world as a stronghold, he could win over various galaxies, planes, and forces, and lead them to fight against the Celestial Devil Emperor. It's dangerous. Rose of Flowers said, but I believe in my husband and the realm protection formation that the highest elder has studied. Jun Changxiao, who had been wavering, saw that she was so supportive. He immediately slapped his thigh and said, don't hide anymore. It's time to lay our cards on the table. You are so annoying. Rose of Flowers blushed. Why? Because Go Sheng slapped her thigh. Are you sure? You have to think twice. In the main hall of the Sect of All Times, the higher-ups learned that the Patriarch was going to expose the eternal world and stand proudly in the upper universe. They all spoke out to dissuade him. It was not that they did not believe in the realm protection formation, but it was better to hide in the dark than to stand in the open. The Celestial Devil Emperor has harmed the universe, plunging the people into misery and suffering. Jun Changshao said seriously, "At this time, we need a lighthouse to illuminate the darkness and guide the lost lambs." Everyone understood. The patriarch wanted to use the eternal world as a lighthouse. Yes. Jian Guishu agreed. Now the upper universe is chaotic and disorderly. Many planes and forces are fighting for themselves. We urgently need a plane that is strong enough to lead them to fight against the celestial devil emperor. It was good to hide in the dark. However, since they were going to fight the devil to the end, they had to have a base in the open. Everyone. Jun Chang asked with a smile, "Do you have any objections?" "No objections." Everyone shouted in unison. The day after tomorrow, the eternal world will stand in the upper universe. The light will dispel all darkness. Jun Changshao said firmly. Why did he choose the day after tomorrow? He did not deliberately choose the calendar, but according to estimation, the eternal ship would arrive at the locked destination. The Sky-Wild World. The first-class plane secretly controlled by the celestial devil emperor. If the Star Spirit World was a factory for warships and equipment, then the Sky-Wild World was a provider of all kinds of martial arts resources. That was right. This plane was vast and rich in resources. According to the commander's confession, the celestial devil emperor's army would come to the Sky-Wild World almost every once in a while to resupply. The Star Spirit World also had trade with it. Vast and rich in resources. Jun Changshao said, "How vast and how rich is it?" The day after tomorrow. The eternal ship arrived outside the Sky-Wild World as promised. This plane was indeed very large, at least one size bigger than the Star Spirit World. Sorry. Jun Changshao sat in the cockpit, gently shaking the goblet with tea in his right hand, and said, "Since you chose to help the devil, all the resources inside will belong to the Sect of all times. No more pretending. He was here to rob." "Who is it?" Suddenly, a deep voice sounded from the Sky-Wild World. Whoosh 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 whoosh. A famous martial artist flew out from inside. From this, it could be seen that there should be some kind of surveillance equipment outside this plane. The moment the eternal ship stopped, it was discovered by them. It did not matter. Jun Changshao did not intend to hide this time. "I am," he said lightly, "the patriarch of the Sect of all times." The patriarch of the Sect of all times? The Sky-Wild World martial artist's expression suddenly changed. Not long ago, he received news from the celestial devil emperor that the Star Spirit World was destroyed, and the culprit was the Sect of all times. Trouble. Quick, enter the first-class alert. The Sky-Wild World martial artist panicked. Everyone. Jun Changshao said, "The eternal world will take the star field here, and the Sect of all times will take your plane." With that, he snapped his fingers. Buzz! In an instant, the plane origin deep underground flickered with a scorching light, and then automatically blocked the effect of turning into sand. Caw caw caw. Caw caw caw. In the outside world, the universe space trembled. This. The Sky-Wild World martial artist's eyes widened, or to be exact, his eyeballs almost popped out. Because the trembling space was torn apart, and a super-large plane slowly moved out. How big was super-large? When the plane was completely revealed, the Sky-Wild World, which was not small in size, stood next to it, like a child facing an adult. There was at least a 5 times difference. This was the true body of the eternal world after 2 fusion of the origin. Several hours later. The war had stopped, and corpses were everywhere. Although the Sky-Wild World was large, its overall strength and technology tree were far inferior to the astral world. Therefore, the moment the Sect of all times launched their attack, the outcome was already decided. The old readers didn't care about the victory or defeat, but the casualties. Unfortunately, after a fierce battle and an overwhelming victory, the Sect of all times only had a few thousand injured, and most of them were Avengers. As for the upper echelons and disciples, they were all alive and kicking, and still had 0 casualties. They had excellent equipment and the power of heavenly music. To be honest, unless they met those upper-class divination realms and those at the level of the celestial demonic emperor, they couldn't die even if they wanted to. Invincible. Jun Changshao wantonly sang loudly, so lonely. Pft. Pft. The song echoed in the universe and entered the ears of the upper echelons and disciples, instantly injuring their bodies and causing them to spit out blood. In this battle, hundreds of thousands of enemies were wiped out. The Skywild world definitely didn't have so few martial artists, but because they were fighting in the universe, very few could fly out. For example, when the 4-8 Division Heavenly Dragons came to the astral world and used the bell to summon the local martial artists, millions of them were mentioned in the article, causing the readers to question if there were only so few people in a plane. In fact, millions of those who flew over were the absolute elites. There were countless creatures who couldn't fly. Whoosh! Whoosh! The battle in the universe ended, and the Sect of all times' army charged straight into the Skywild world. When they just flew over, they could smell the fragrance of grass and flowers, and determined that this was definitely a good place to nurture resources. Take down the major cities. Jun Changshao landed lightly on a mountain and sat on the chair that Xiao Ziji had prepared in advance. Yes! Under Xuerengui's command, the Sect of all times' army split into 8 groups and quickly attacked the major cities from different directions. The top fighting forces of this plane had suffered heavy losses, and they were scared out of their wits by the powerful enemy. It was truly a crushing defeat, and many cities even collapsed on their own and chose to surrender. It was understandable. Since they could submit to the celestial demonic emperor, it proved that they didn't have any backbone. One day, the Sect of all times took down the major cities of the Skywild world. Because the top forces were annihilated and completely lost their ability to resist, they didn't harm the ordinary citizens. Strange. Sitting in the luxurious palace, Jun Changshao wondered, why don't I see the realm lord of this world? Chapter 1952. Phew. Phew. In the heavenly field world, mini mining machines flew around in the sky. Occasionally, they would enter the dense mountains in groups, and occasionally enter the dangerous valleys. Every time they came out, they would carry a lot of high-quality spiritual stones. The mining machine that Jun Changshao bought did not have the ability to find mineral veins. Everything depended on the golden partners. Who? Ren Shan and Page. One had the koi attribute, and the other could dig mountains and stones. When these two worked, they did not leave a way out for their descendants. Phew. Ren Shan landed in a desolate valley and looked at the surrounding mountains. He guessed, there should be mineral veins here. Sure enough. With the help of luck, they soon found an ancient mineral vein. According to the preliminary estimates of the professional exploration team, it contained at least billions of spiritual stones. Paige, I'll leave it to you. Okay. Paige flew over and its body quickly enlarged. Then it began to eat the soil and soon ate the entrance of a mine. Phew phew phew. The well-trained miners flew in like a swarm of locusts, then dug out all the energy stones in an orderly manner. In just a few hours, the rich mineral vein had been emptied. This speed, this efficiency. It could only be described as exaggerated. A few months or even a few years in the heavenly field world could not compare to a day or two of mining machines. It wouldn't take long for him to dig it all out. The spiritual stones unearthed from the mineral vein were first sent to a fixed city and then to the Starry Sky battleship. The latter flew out of the plane and merged with the eternal world not far away. From the perspective of the Starry Sky, one could clearly see the battleships flying back and forth. Not only were there a large number of high-quality spiritual stones, but there were also many natives of the heavenly field world. Your realm master has run away. And me. From today on, I will treat you as my family. I will never leave you. Jun Changshao stood in the sky of the eternal world and shouted to the creatures that had just moved in. After 2 expansions, the plane needed more people to develop. So naturally, the warriors of the first-class plane could not be let go. In short, not only did he take away the resources of the heavenly field world, but he also took away the creatures. Although it was shameless. However, it was undeniable that if the creatures of the Skyfield world followed Jun Changshao, their future would definitely be bright. At the very least, they would not be abandoned when they encountered trouble. Moreover, given Jun Changshao's character, as long as he was willing to become a resident of the eternal world and abide by the law, he would definitely treat him as his family. Therefore, as long as a living being from any plane could move in, it would definitely be a great opportunity for the future generations. What should come will come sooner or later. Jun Changshao sat in the main hall and said with a dignified look, "The warriors of our world are not afraid of a battle." Since they had shown up and stood in the upper universe, they were ready to fight the celestial devil emperor head-on. It was strange. A few more months passed. The celestial devil emperor still did not take action. No. Jian Guishu wondered, with the devil's ability to act, he should have sent an army to kill us. I killed 8 capable generals. I'm afraid there is no one left, right? Jun Changshao said. No. Jian Guishu said, the celestial devil emperor should have many doppelgangers. In terms of strength, he is not inferior to the 8-division heavenly dragon. Could it be? Jun Changshao was lost in thought and said, is he planning a conspiracy? In the past, the celestial devil emperor would not be able to find him if he wanted to play a conspiracy. Now the eternal world was in the upper universe, it was really a target. It's hard to say. Jian Guishu said, it's better to be cautious. Senior, please rest assured. Jun Changshao said, I have ordered the disciples to be on alert all day. Okay. Jian Guishu nodded. If the celestial devil emperor does not take action, I will. Jun Changshao touched his chin and said. On the same day, starry sky battleships flew out of the eternal world, merged into the endless darkness, and flew in all directions. Their mission was to inform the entire upper universe that the eternal world was going to fight the celestial devil emperor fair and square. They were waiting for ambitious people to join and fight for the world together. Not long after, the news spread. Many planes and forces that fought against the celestial devil emperor received it one after another and began to discuss it. The final conclusion was that this plane came out of nowhere and recruited warriors so straightforwardly. Humph. In the main hall of a force, an old man said disdainfully, we have fought against the celestial devil emperor for many years and accumulated a lot of experience and strength. How can we go to the eternal world? In my opinion, this plane should join us, said Yi Futian. In short, Jun Changshao released the news, but not only did he fail to recruit ambitious people, but he was even despised and discriminated against. Understandable. The several big things that the sect of all times had done recently had not been spread. Many people even knew that the star spiritual world was destroyed, but they did not know who the murderer was. So, if they suddenly came out to recruit people, they would definitely be questioned. Of course. There was a more important reason. This time, when the celestial devil emperor caused trouble in the upper universe, they rose up to fight against him in order to gain merit and fortune in the catastrophe and have a chance to touch the secret of eternal life. Naturally, they were unwilling to be the underlings of others. Alas! Jun Changshao sat in the main hall and said helplessly, if the eternal world wants to be the benchmark against the celestial devil emperor, we still need to show enough results. Brother. Gu Zhaoxi said disdainfully, this group of forces that fought against the celestial devil emperor in order to obtain opportunities are originally evil. Why should we recruit them? I thought so at first. Jun Changshao said, but the strength of the celestial devil emperor is unknown. We have to gather the strength of the entire universe to improve our chances of winning. Patriarch. At this time, Li Luoqiu came in and said, I just got the news that the Celestial Devil Emperor's army is attacking the Desolate Sea Realm. Here's our chance. Jun Changshao immediately ordered, send the elites of the War Cavalry Hall to assist the Desolate Sea Realm. We must ensure the safety of this plane. Yes. Swish, swish, swish. In a moment, hundreds of battleships flew out of the Eternal World. Phew. In the leading battleship, Jingji stood in front of the mirror in the cabin, tidied up her school uniform, and then put on her helmet. It was time to show her real skills. Chapter 1953. Although the Celestial Demonic Emperor had not attacked the Eternal World, he had not stopped expanding and suppressing the outside world. Many armies had split up and attacked the planes that had been targeted in advance. This was an opportunity for Jun Changshao. He could quickly provide assistance and improve the reputation and prestige of the planes. He could let the entire upper universe know who was doing the real thing and who was being a jerk. That was right. A jerk. Many forces were not really determined to fight against the Celestial Demonic Emperor. They only hoped to benefit from this catastrophe. If they risked their lives to fight, it would not happen. Jun Changshao not only wanted to do it for real, but he also wanted to mobilize everyone. He wanted to change from a jerk to a hero. To put it bluntly, Gou Sheng did not want to be a lone hero. The Celestial Demonic Emperor was harming the upper universe, so all creatures should be united to fight against him. They had the obligation and responsibility to participate. Gou Sheng was a very realistic person. If it were other heroes who saved people, they might carry everything on their own and face everything by themselves. But he did not. To fight against evil, he had to gather everyone's strength. I don't want to be a savior. I don't want people to wait for a savior in the face of oppression and danger. Because of this mentality, Jun Changshao integrated several top planes. He only had one purpose. He could be a savior, but he had to provide strength. Sigh. The system sighed. This is a savior who pursues fame and benefits. Nonsense. Jun Changshao said, who would do it if there are no benefits? Aren't you afraid that Little Du will criticize your worldview? The system mocked. Jun Changshao said disdainfully, how can a modern person measure the three views of the cruel world? The only thing I can do is to stay true to my heart. I won't do anything unforgivable and heartless. That's all. The system was speechless. If the host was bad, he was definitely not a good person. If the host was kind, although it involved benefits, he was still kind. The Desolate Sea Realm. A quasi-first-class plane. The creatures and realm masters here were very unyielding. In the face of the threat and intimidation of the Celestial Demonic Emperor, they would rather die than live in dishonor. There were many similar worlds, and they would rather choose death than to submit. Isn't it good to live an ignoble life? For some people, it was better to live than to die, but for others, even if their kneecaps were shattered, they would still stand. Boom! Boom! Outside the Huanghai realm, cannonballs bombarded the space barrier, tearing a huge hole in it. Swish! Swish! Over 100 space battleships rushed in, and after the lower cabins opened up, ferocious-looking and burly heavenly demon soldiers flew out. Humph! The commander-in-chief sneered and said, "You dare to reject my emperor's recruitment? Today, I will turn you into ashes. Kill, hoo-hoo." In the blink of an eye, hundreds of thousands of Celestial Demonic Emperor's soldiers unleashed their cultivation and charged down with bloodshot eyes. In their eyes, since this plane had rejected the Celestial Demonic Emperor, not a single blade of grass or tree was allowed to exist. If you live, the world lives. If you die, the world dies. In the main city of the Huanghai realm, the realm lord roared. The martial artists who had been waiting solemnly for a long time all erupted with their cultivations and drew their weapons. Their eyes showed that they were ready to face death, even children. There was no need to be afraid. There was no fear. Today, they would live and die together with their homeland, composing a tragic song. Boom! Boom! The celestial demonic emperor's army couldn't fight with soldiers alone. After launching the attack, over 100 space battleships began to bombard the major cities in the plain, trying to destroy all the defense lines. Caw caw caw. Caw caw caw. One by one, the defense arrays broke. What awaited the living beings was death. The old, the weak, the women, and the children hid in the shaking houses. They knelt on the ground and put their palms together, praying for the gods to help the Huanghai realm survive this disaster. Maybe they were too pious, or maybe they were touched by the gods. Just when the entire plane was in danger, a dazzling light flashed across the broken space crack. Ha! The celestial demonic emperor's army, which was about to start a massacre, stopped and looked at the uninvited guest. Swish! A stream of light flashed across the sky. It was a huge, technologically advanced mecha. It stood proudly in the sky, flashing light as dazzling as the sun. Crack! He raised his hand and drew his sword. I will protect the Huanghai realm. A loud and hot-blooded voice came from Shao Tian's Godslayer. You are courting death. The enemy general was surprised, but he immediately gave the order to attack. Hundreds of warships aimed their cannons at the huge mecha. Humph! Shao Tian sneered. He didn't attack immediately. Instead, he contacted the headquarters and asked, "Are we allowed to kill?" "Yes." "Are we allowed to destroy the warships?" "Yes." "Are we?" Jun Changshao, who was in the cockpit of Eternal, snatched the communicator and roared, "Why are you talking so much nonsense? If you want to attack, just do it. Stop wasting time." "Yes, sir." With the Patriarch's permission, Shao Tian's eyes lit up. He put his hands on the control stick and shouted, "Show! Begin!" Swish! As soon as he finished, Shao Tian disappeared. The Huanghai realm martial artists in the city below widened their eyes because a huge Z sword mark appeared where the enemy warships gathered. Bang! Bang, bang, bang! In an instant, more than a dozen warships were destroyed. Chapter 1954. The news that the Eternal World had wiped out the army of the celestial demonic emperor and saved the desolate sea realm quickly spread in the upper universe. Jun Changshao must have deliberately spread the news. In order to convince everyone, he deliberately sent members of the Drizzle Hall to lurk in various plains and cities to spread the news. Words are no proof. Someone questioned, who would believe that? That's right. We're not fools. Obviously, the warriors from various planes didn't buy it. They even thought that the Eternal World had hired a water army to spread false propaganda and hype, so as to establish a noble image. Just as people were questioning, the sky above many major plains and cities gradually blurred, and projection arrays appeared. What's going on? The warriors looked up in surprise. Whoosh! Suddenly, an image lit up in the projection, showing a plain where space was crumbling. This is, someone exclaimed, the desolate sea realm. Boom! 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 The image suddenly changed. Battleships appeared one after another, and ferocious-looking and well-trained soldiers flew out. It's the army of the celestial demonic emperor. The warriors in various cities understood that the image in the image should be the scene when the army of the celestial demonic emperor attacked the desolate sea realm. Whoosh! Suddenly, a flowing light flew over, crossing between heaven and earth, as bright as the sun. I'll protect the desolate sea realm. Jing Yu's voice came, resounding in various planes. It could be seen that the rescue of the desolate sea realm had been recorded in advance by the projection array. Words are no proof. Fine, Today I'll let you see it with your own eyes. Boom! Boom! The next image showed how Jing Yu destroyed the army of the celestial demonic emperor with the help of the dawn sky. The creatures who witnessed it were all silent and shocked. One person annihilating an army. They couldn't believe it, it was unbelievable. Without the projection array, they might have doubted it, but now they were shaken. Could it be that the eternal world was really powerful? Could they really compete with the celestial demonic emperor? Let's go. Zhen Dejuan, hiding in the dark, led the crowd and left. After they disappeared, a large number of formation masters from the city rushed over and roared, "Who maliciously hijacked our formation system?" That's right. Zhen Dejuan had hijacked the array formation system without the other party's permission, and from there, set up the projection array formation. The level is too high, I can't turn it off at all. Damn it. Just as they were at their wits' end, the light screen suspended in mid-air finished playing the evidence and disappeared. No more. Looks like this formation won't be able to last much longer. The formation masters in the city heaved a sigh of relief. Similar situations occurred in other planes as well. In short, the formation system was hijacked, and the projection formation was forcibly installed. The most tragic thing was that no one could break it, and they could only watch it disappear. Did he really disappear? No. On the second day, the projection formation was activated again, showing the scene of Jing Ji annihilating the celestial demonic emperor's army. Again. The array masters collapsed. The projection screen would only last for about 10 minutes before disappearing on its own. After that, the videos would be broadcasted at a fixed time every day, causing Jing Ji to gradually become an internet celebrity. The image of her sitting on the mecha's shoulder with her helmet between her legs was especially engraved in people's minds. This kind of crazy and brainwashing publicity was like a dream back to when Go Sheng shamelessly advertised during the Battle of the Dragons and Tigers. Although it was a little disgusting. However, the effect was very obvious. Warriors in various planes gradually accepted the fact that the desolate sea realm was saved by the eternal world. So what? They are not the elites of the celestial demonic emperor at all. If it were our plane, we would have done the same. Hearing the new doubts of the world, Jun Changshao sat in the hall in silence. After a long time, he stuck his face to the camera and roared with a ferocious expression, "Is it so difficult to get their approval? Okay. Not enough elites? Then the sect of all times will fight their elites." Buzz. One day, the projection formation in the major cities of various planes was activated again. Everyone was used to it. They just instinctively glanced at it and then did what they should do. Something was wrong. The image shown today seemed to be a little different. Everyone looked at it again, only to see that it was no longer a shattered space or a mecha killing, but a vast starry sky of the universe. Brothers. Suddenly, the man imprinted in everyone's mind suddenly appeared on the light screen. He put on his helmet and said loudly, "Today, I'll show you a live broadcast of how the eternal world fought the elites of the celestial demonic emperor." Live broadcast? Everyone was confused. At this moment, the camera turned to the hundreds of black battleships in the starry sky. Obviously, this was the army of the celestial demonic emperor. From the traces of emergency brakes left in the space, it could be seen that they were forcibly intercepted. Kill! Kill! A deafening roar rang out, and a dense swarm of mechas and martial artists charged over. The scene that appeared was extremely shocking. Damn it! Everyone was so shocked that their scalps almost exploded. Although they were not there to watch, they could still feel the strong murderous aura from the light screen. In order to convince the upper universe, Jun Changshao held a large-scale live broadcast. All the elites of the sect of all times, as well as the seniors and disciples, were present. Because it was premeditated, the celestial demonic emperor's army was suddenly intercepted and panicked. They were suppressed from the beginning and had no power to fight back. Especially He Wudi in the top lane, he directly suppressed the opponent's last hit and had an economic lead of thousands. The situation on the battlefield could be said to be changing rapidly, especially in the battle for the vanguard. The Sect of all times relied on their individual ability and excellent team coordination to successfully fight a wave of 0 for 5, expanding their economic lead to 10,000. At this time, Woody in the top lane was showing off like crazy. He rushed into the enemy's crowd alone and not only successfully restrained the 4 people on the opposite side, he also relied on flexible positioning and extreme operation to successfully kill the bottom lane combination, took down the second tower, and then left in a cool and unrestrained manner. Crush! Absolutely crush! The commentator Little Do roared with passion. At this time, the enemy took advantage of the time when the Sect of all times returned to the city to resupply and decided to attack the Primordius Dragon. Then, as soon as it started, there was a whoosh 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 sound. TP. Woody spared the rear. This eye position, Xiao Ziji placed it perfectly. Under the roar of the commentator, Woody in the top lane was like a god. With an E skill, he jumped into the small dragon pit and used all kinds of AoE skills, directly crippling all the heroes on the opposite side. At this time, Lu Qianxian in the middle lane had already arrived and used 10,000 miles ice seal, sealing the entire battlefield with absolute zero. Thump thump thump. On the other side, Xiao Ziji rushed over, raised his shield on the way, and shouted, "Junior brother Yi, it's time to collect the heads." Whoosh! Before he finished speaking, Yi Xingqian had already flown over and stepped on the flowing light shield with one foot. With the help of the momentum, his entire body soared into the air. A 7-colored light gathered in his hand and mercilessly shot towards the frozen army of the demonic emperor. Whoosh! Whoosh! The stream of light burst out and entered the soul. Pentakill. Under a series of prompts, Woody successfully obtained a pentakill and wiped out the main force of the demonic emperor. The commentator Little Do stood up, slammed the table and roared, "It's going to be a wave." Boom! The demonic emperor's side was utterly defeated. In the end, the Sect of all times pulled out the high and low towers and crystals one after another. With hundreds of battleships all crumbling, this intense and exciting match came to an end. Not only did the LPL team Sect of all times successfully defeat the demonic emperor team to win the 3rd championship of the S tournament, but they also shocked the living beings of the major planes. They would not forget the battle just now, nor would they forget Woody's God's descent, as well as the tacit cooperation between the entire team. If they were to describe it, they would be a group of monsters. Did you see that? At this time, Jun Changshao appeared in the camera and said, "Our Sect of all times fights against the elites." Who the fuck is not convinced? Everyone was silent. There was only one thought in their minds: convinced. Chapter 1955. You don't agree with the eternal world? Fine, I'll play the rescue scene repeatedly for you to see. You're starting to complain that the enemy is not elite enough? Fine, I'll do a live broadcast and use actual actions to tell you that the Sect of all times fights elites. When this set of combination punches was thrown out, all the people who doubted him were dumbfounded. To be honest, whether a sect was strong or not depended on whether its disciples were fierce or not. Through the live broadcast, the Sect of all times proved itself well. Of course, the fighting method in the previous chapter was described as a LOL battle. Although it was a bit silly, it didn't really rely on only 5 people to win. Many disciples participated and completed it together. This sect is too terrifying. I believe that they saved the Huanghai realm. Under the double proof of the video and the live broadcast, many warriors were shaken. Boom! Boom! The projection array of the major planes appeared at fixed points every day. It not only played the video of Jingji saving the Huanghai realm, but also the video of the Sect of all times blocking the elites of the celestial demonic emperor. Go Sheng's idea was very simple. You don't believe it? I'll keep playing it until you all believe it. As the video kept appearing on the light screen, people remembered it more and more. They even dreamed of it when they slept at night. Regardless of whether they believed it or not, they would definitely collapse. Not only that. When more and more warriors chose to believe in the sect of all times, Jun Changxiao's face would suddenly appear in the middle of the video and then start his passionate speech. Everyone. The celestial demonic emperor is a disaster in the upper universe. No one can stay out of it. For the thousands of creatures, for the future generations, we must take up arms and fight back. And the eternal world, the sect of all times, has the ability and qualification to lead you to fight against the celestial demonic emperor and return peace to the universe. Warriors who are interested in cooperation, please come to the star area where the Tianai realm is located for a face-to-face discussion and a long talk. Everyone's mouth twitched. This guy, was he using the projection array to advertise? Of course. He was an expert. Jun Changxiao even personally made a promotional MV called Welcome to the Eternal World, which integrated the local customs and beautiful scenery of his plane and played it on the light screen all day long. My door is always open, waiting for you with open arms. You'll have a tacit understanding after hugging. You'll fall in love with this place. A pleasant voice was heard on the screen. The upper echelons of the sect of all times, disciples, and even martial artists from various races appeared one by one. They were either standing on the training grounds, on the mountain peaks, on the city towers, or in the fields. Chapter 1956. Death Test. A death test. Zhang San's words were very serious, and it did not seem like he was joking at all. Of course, after being locked in the pagoda for so long, he did not dare to make such a joke, unless he did not want to live anymore. Can you be more specific? It had been raining for the past few days, and the eternal world was slightly depressed. Jun Changxiao also had a premonition. Sorry. Zhang San said helplessly, I don't have the ability to explain things in detail even if I wanted to. Jun Changxiao sat down. Jun Patriarch. Zhang San shouted, run quickly. You said it yourself. This is a calamity of certain death. Jun Chang smiled and said, do you think I can escape? Ga. Zhang San was stunned. Yes. From the divination, the sect of all times was facing a death test, and there was no way out. No matter where they ran, they would have to face the cruel reality. Bang! Zhang San punched the iron door and blamed himself, it's my fault for not being good enough. I can't find a way out for Jun Patriarch from the divination. Although he had been locked up, he was entertained with good wine and good food, which made him forget about home. Wrong, wrong. He cared so much about the sect of all times and Jun Changxiao, but more importantly, this sect and this person should be the person that could change the situation of the upper universe. This was the hope of the future. Any living thing in the world could die, but he could not. Brother. Jun Changxiao stood up and said with his hands behind his back, I don't agree with what you said. Looking at the dark clouds outside the window, he said in a deep voice, a person's life or death is not dodged by divination, but by himself. At that moment, Jun Changxiao's back exuded a philosophical light, which immediately made Zhang San feel deep veneration. In the past, he had some doubts, but now he was sure that the person that would change the situation of the universe must be this guy. Jun Patriarch. Thank you for taking care of me these days. Please open the cage and allow me to live and die with your patriarch. Since this person was the hope of the universe, Zhang San had to help him, even if he had to die with him. Jun Changxiao was deeply moved. The major planes were afraid of the Sky Devil Emperor and did not dare to help him, but a fortune teller supported him at a time of danger. This proved that there was justice in this cruel world. Okay. Jun Changxiao clasped his hands. Hey! Zhang San's head was about to pop out of the window as he roared, don't go. Open the door. Ta! Jun Changshao stopped and said without turning around, "This is my eternal sect's death tribulation. I will not implicate outsiders." As soon as these words were spoken, they were deeply moving. No. Jun Changshao said, "You are an outsider." Zhang San stuck to the edge of the window and shouted, "Am I still an outsider after joining the sect of all times?" Whoosh! Jun Changshao suddenly appeared behind him and quickly placed the entry form in front of him. He said seriously, "Then you are not an outsider. You are one of us." Zhang San stood there, dumbfounded. Was this guy deliberately waiting for him to jump into the pit? "My name is Zhang San. I joined the sect of all times in a daze. Do I still have the option to leave the sect?" Just like that. The sect of all times had another strong person. Zhang San might be a fortune teller, but to be able to exchange blows with the Sky Devil Emperor's clone, his martial arts must be extraordinary. On the same day, the upper echelons and disciples gathered at the main peak's training ground. Starting today, Jun Changshao stood in front of the main hall and announced, "Zhang San is the head of the sect of all times' divination hall." Clap clap. Clap clap. Everyone applauded to welcome him. The joyous atmosphere dispelled the depression brought by the cloudy day. "Patriarch," Zhang San said telepathically, "what is the main job of the divination hall?" "I haven't thought about it yet." "You will be the head of the hall first." Zhang San was speechless. The system complained, "It's not that you haven't thought about it, but that you are waiting for a chapter review. You are just borrowing it." Boom! Boom! Suddenly, thunder and lightning flashed in the sky, and the atmosphere became more and more oppressive. The upper echelons and disciples of the sect of all times, and even all the living beings in the eternal world, could clearly feel that something big was going to happen soon. And this big event might involve life and death. Jian Guishu also frowned. The higher the realm of an expert, the stronger the premonition. Phew! Jun Changshao exhaled, then turned and ordered, "Do, start the fire and cook." "Patriarch, hurry up and go." "Yes." The Imperial Cuisine Hall began to get busy. Soon, table after table of sumptuous dishes were placed in the cafeteria, the martial arts practice field, and even the elders' peaks. In the past, the sect of all times ate in batches. This time, it was all prepared to let everyone in the sect have a full meal. "Patriarch," Lu Wancher said loudly, "Lu, the food is ready." Elder Wei and the others twitched their mouths. Death was at hand, and this girl still had the bad habit of being a child. "Come." Jun Changshao sat down and said, "Let this seat eat his fill." Swoosh swoosh. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. In an instant, everyone in the sect of all time sat down. They ate without a smile. Although the dishes were still delicious, the more they ate, the heavier and more oppressive they felt. Second senior brother. Eat. Su Xiaoma shut his mouth and could only eat in silence. Strangely, everyone was especially hungry today and ate a lot. Even the rice grains that fell on the table were not wasted. Gulp. Jun Changshao drank a mouthful of soup and then put the bowl down. He picked up a napkin to wipe his mouth and said with a smile, "We can only win when we eat our fill." Everyone understood. Soon, there would be a fierce battle. Eat. Xiao Zuiji grabbed a few steaming buns with both hands, and quickly devoured them all in one bite. The disciples who were already full also ate a few more bowls. The patriarch said, "We can only win when we eat our fill." Just having food was definitely not enough. After everyone was full, bowls of drunken dreams were placed in front of them. "Come. Cheers." Jun Changshao stepped on the stool with one foot and drank it all in a heroic manner. He then slammed the bowl on the ground. Paw! Paw! The disciples followed suit. The sound of the bowl breaking could be heard frequently. This made Yuan Gongzi's heart ache. After all, the bowls were considered public goods. How could they be intentionally damaged? If it was in the past, even if Jun Changshao took the lead, Yuan Gongzi would silently take note. This time, he chose to turn a blind eye to it. Bang! Bang! On the Spirit Beast Peak, Hall Master Z and his subordinates had also smashed the bowls. The sound of the bowl breaking echoed in the air and slowly drifted to old Yuan's ears. He immediately opened his eyes and took out a small notebook to record. The Spirit Beast Hall had maliciously smashed bowls and destroyed public goods. Their nature was vile. After this incident, they had to be severely punished. Damn! Z stood up and roared, "You don't take note of the patriarch who smashed the bowls, but you take note of my Spirit Beast Hall smashing the bowls. What the fuck is the meaning of this?" Bang! In an instant, the school uniform that he was wearing that had been taken care of by everyone was smashed, leaving only his sexy red underwear. "Hall Master, calm down." His subordinates tried to dissuade him. "Calm down, my ass." The Purple King pointed at old Yuan, who was still taking notes on the main peak. He roared with rage, "Yuan, I have tolerated you for a long time." Boom! Suddenly, there was a deafening explosion. The entire eternal world shook violently. Layers of ripples appeared in the sky and gradually materialized, forming layers of boundary that could be seen by the naked eye. "Not good!" Taishian exclaimed, "The boundary protection array has revealed itself." Chapter 1957. In the Starry Sky. Many starry sky battleships were floating. How many were there? Too many to count. Whoosh! Every battleship emitted a gloomy aura. They gathered together and turned the universe into hell. The eternal world? A voice came from the depths of the void, never heard of it. Crack! Suddenly, the space was broken. Whoosh! Scorching flames gushed out along the tiny cracks, and then continued to expand the area of the rupture until a slender figure walked out from within. Only then did the flames gradually extinguish. Who was it? The helper of the celestial demon emperor. This man should be an expert of the fire property, which could be seen from his blood-red hair. Because they didn't know his name and what secrets he had with the celestial demon emperor, they called him a red-haired man. It's so big. It's the first time I've seen it. The red-haired man was also shocked by the size of the eternal world. No wonder. The celestial demon emperor will be defeated. In his opinion, there must be a lot of experts in such a big plane, so the guy had to ask him for help. Crack! Crack! All the starry sky battleships stopped and took out their weapons, aiming at the eternal world. No need. At this time, the red-haired man raised his hand and said, "Leave it to me." In the main battleship, the commander-in-chief, who was about to give the order to attack, frowned. But considering that the man was invited by the celestial demon emperor, he had to signal the other battleships to stop. Swish! The red-haired man took off his cloak, revealing his strong upper body. The lotus-shaped tattoo was particularly dazzling. "Can I be free?" He raised 2 fingers and shook them gently. A cluster of flames rose and kept expanding until it turned into a ball of fire. He said, "It depends on this plane." But it was not over. The red-haired man was still shaking his 2 fingers. Whoosh! Whoosh! The heaven and earth properties in the depths of the starry sky seemed to be attracted. They separated from the fire properties and then poured in from all directions, constantly adding to the ball of fire. The more properties there were, the greater the momentum. After a while, the huge ball of fire slowly rotated on the red-haired man's fingertips. Crack! Crack! The hot air spread and crazily burned the space. The commander-in-chief's expression was extremely solemn, and a few beads of sweat gradually appeared on his forehead. The battleship had the ability to insulate against heat and cold, but just by looking at the huge fireball, one could feel the heat. General. One of the strategists said, this person's strength isn't any weaker than before. They're even stronger than before. The commander-in-chief wiped the sweat off his forehead and said in a serious tone. When the celestial devil emperor decided to destroy the eternal world, he mobilized almost all the troops. Since he could be the commander-in-chief, he was definitely a trusted subordinate. That was why he had witnessed the battle between the celestial devil emperor and the red-haired man. That battle. Earth-shattering. Although the Sky Devil Emperor won in the end, it was still undeniable that the other party was terrifying. In the upper universe, the Night King is one of the few people who can pose a threat to our emperor, the commander-in-chief said. What a pity. The strategist smiled and said, he's still lost to my emperor. Therefore, only by following the Lord can we start a new era. These martial artists who followed the demonic emperor had been thoroughly brainwashed. They fantasized that they could do great things that would go down in history, and even become heroes who would create a new era. Whoosh! The red-haired man standing in the starry sky waved his hand, and the fireball with explosive power slowly flew out toward the eternal world. The whole process was very slow and gentle, like a red lotus floating in the water. Back off! The commander-in-chief hurriedly said, with fear in his eyes. Whoosh whoosh whoosh! Whoosh whoosh whoosh! Countless battleships flew backward until they were far enough away. All the soldiers on the battleship stared at the lotus-shaped fireball, not wanting to miss the coming boom. In an instant, there was an explosion in the starry sky of the universe. The trembling space suddenly collapsed and spread out. Crack crack. Crack crack crack. The aftershock spread far and wide, and a large area of the starry sky collapsed. The soldiers on the celestial devil emperor's side all felt their scalps tingling because the space collapse had spread to their front. If they hadn't retreated just now, they would have been killed. They didn't have time to think about whether they had escaped by luck. Instead, they turned their eyes and looked at the burning and collapsing space in the distance. The red-haired man had his back to them. He picked his ear with his fingers and said carelessly, "They provoked the celestial devil emperor and were unprepared. The eternal world is not as strong as we thought." Suddenly, he stopped picking his ear. The sloppy expression on his face also disappeared. This. The commander-in-chief rubbed his eyes. After making sure that he was not mistaken, he said in disbelief, "How could it be?" At that moment, the soldiers of the celestial devil emperor were all dumbfounded. The explosion just now was absolutely terrible. It directly destroyed the surrounding space. Not to mention living creatures, even a plane could not withstand it. But, when the monstrous flames dissipated and the eternal world appeared in their sight safe and sound, they were all dumbfounded and dumbfounded. The red-haired man frowned. As the person involved, he knew his own strength. It should be easy for him to blow up a plane. To be honest. From the beginning of the fireball to the beginning of the attack, he acted as if he had the plane in the palm of his hand. But the result was not what he expected. He was really slapped in the face. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Just at this moment, the eternal world shook slightly. Layers of hexagonal bounded domain appeared, forming a defensive system like an eggshell. The red-haired man opened his eyes wide. He finally understood that the eternal world had a defensive formation. But, how could there be such a big formation in such a big plane? He was full of shock and astonishment. No wonder. The red-haired man gradually calmed down. He lowered his head and fiddled with his hair. He smiled and said, "The celestial devil emperor asked me to do it." Swish! He stretched out his palms and aimed at the eternal world. He said, "Get serious." Whoosh, whoosh. In an instant, the fire attribute in the collapsing void constantly emerged and then gathered into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 flame energy balls in front of his palms. Raging fire, burning sky. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Although the 5 flames were not as big as the previous ones, they contained more fire energy and sprinted faster. "You can announce the end," the commander-in-chief said decisively. Boom! Boom, 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 boom. In a moment, the 5 powerful flames hit the barrier of the formation that enveloped the eternal world. The strong residual power spread out and constantly ravaged the shattered universe. "Oh no! Those in the front, retreat!" Boom, boom, boom. As soon as the commander-in-chief spoke, dozens of battleships that had been docked at the edge of the last explosion exploded on the spot. "Retreat, retreat, retreat!" The battleships behind hurriedly reversed. "I forgot to tell you." The red-haired man turned his head and said, "You have to pay the price for watching the fun." The commander-in-chief's face darkened. He knew that this guy did it on purpose. The red-haired man looked back and saw everything in the area covered by the flames. He said frantically, "Why is it still there?" The commander-in-chief and others also looked over. When the flames dissipated, they found that the eternal world was still intact after 5 consecutive explosions. Even the bounded domain showed no signs of cracking. Damn it! This array formation was too thick. Damn it! The red-haired man raised his head and stretched out his palms again. He roared, "I won't, He closed his eyes. In his field of vision, a figure flew out of the flowing light boundary. He walked slowly in the air with his head down. No one could see his face clearly. He held a sharp sword in his right hand and a broken sword in his left hand. His hair was so green that it made people panic. "Who are you? A dead man doesn't deserve to know who I am." Chapter 1958. Jun Changshao held the Shenyuan divine sword in his right hand and the unstoppable saber in his left hand. He walked in the void with his head down. His green hair was so dazzling that it made people panic. It was not difficult to see that he had shown a lot of trump cards at this time. "Who are you?" the red-haired man said in a deep voice. The laziness in his eyes was replaced by seriousness. He could feel that this green-haired man was unusual. What a coincidence. One was red and the other was green. As the saying goes, better than bullshit. Dead people don't deserve to know who I am. Jun Changshao kept his head down and his words were extremely arrogant. He was very angry now. Because the other side had bombarded the realm protection formation and consumed a lot of energy from the plane origin. The formation was driven by the plane. The energy needed for its structure and operation was provided by the latter. To be exact, the strength limit of the realm protection formation was determined by the plane origin. At the same time, after being attacked, the energy provided would also be consumed. The red-haired man's 2 powerful bombardments just now, although not broken, burned a lot of energy, at least more than 1 billion spirit stones. For the eternal world with vast resources, it was just a drop in the ocean. But for Jun Changshao, that was impossible. He had no opinion on how his disciple squandered it. If it was taken away or even destroyed by others, he would definitely not accept it. Kill him. Kill him. Thinking of the tragic death of the energy just now, Jun Changshao was even angrier, and the killing intent in his eyes became stronger. The system was speechless. "Is it necessary?" "Ha!" the red-haired man said lightly, "You're quite arrogant." Bang! Suddenly, he put his hands in front of him. Flames roared out and his skin turned the color of magma. He successfully blocked the extremely sharp Shenyuan divine sword. Jun Changshao was surprised. He was very fast and caught him off guard, but he was easily blocked. Moreover, this person's flames, whoosh whoosh. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. In an instant, the red-haired man was surrounded by majestic flames, not only covering himself, but also extending to Jun Changshao, forcing him to quickly withdraw his sword and retreat. Whoosh! As soon as he stabilized himself, there was a sound of wind breaking. Not good. Jun Changshao's expression changed slightly. Before he could do anything, he felt the space around him crumble. Scorching flames rushed out from a tricky position and smashed straight at him. Boom! Caw caw caw! The red-haired man who appeared out of thin air punched Jun Changshao in the face with his fiery fist. The area of impact produced scorching fiery ripples, and the shattered space around them was shattered into dust. The commander-in-chief subconsciously covered his face. This must be very painful. I'll grab it. The red-haired man stretched out his other hand and gripped the Shenyuan divine sword tightly. The moment the two came into contact, there was the sound of metal colliding and sparks of electricity. Caw caw caw! Caw caw caw! Jun Changshao held the sword in a backhand grip, his sword will continuously fusing into the sword body, pushing it forward. Grab my sword? Then I'll cut off your palm. The red-haired man frowned as he sensed the sharpness of the Shenyuan divine sword growing stronger. Then, he decisively let go of the sword and retreated. Lava wall. Whoosh! As he retreated, the red-haired man formed a hand seal and spat out lava flames, quickly forming a fire enchantment at his original position. This choice was made on the spot. This technique was pleasing to the eye. Swish! 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 Jun Changshao raised his two swords and slashed wildly. Finally, he broke the lava wall. Then, he looked at the red-haired man who had stabilized his body with a serious expression. The battle suddenly started and ended abruptly. From the first exchange of blows, Gou Xing seemed to be at a disadvantage after being hit in the face. However, in reality, there were only slight marks on the area that was hit. It was not a big deal. Some people would say that the face was Gou Xing's strongest point of defense. After being hit by a punch, he would be fine. Wrong. In fact, it was because he was also a fire elementalist and had a natural increase in fire resistance. Not bad. You have some ability. The red-haired man's hand that was holding the sword stretched out naturally. There was an obvious sword mark on his palm, and it was slightly painful. He was secretly shocked. What a sharp sword. The flames that he controlled and the lava could be condensed on the surface to form an absolute defense. The green-haired man was hit in the face, and the red-haired man's palm was cut. It could be seen that neither of them had any advantage in the exchange of blows. Don't worry. The battle had just begun. One must destroy the eternal world to restore freedom, and the other must protect the creatures from harm. The result of the battle between them had to be decided. It might even be a matter of life and death. I don't like to waste time. The red-haired man clasped his fingers together and folded them in the opposite direction. He said, "So, let's end it as soon as possible." Same to you. Jun Changshao got into a fighting posture. He raised the Shenyuan divine sword over his head and the broken sword at his waist. Fortunately, it was his long hair that was fluttering in the wind instead of a buzz cut. Otherwise, it would be easy to suspect that he was Zoro the Two-Blade. Swish! The red-haired man clenched his fists. Hot flames mixed with lava spurted out. The lotus pattern that appeared on his chest became brighter and brighter, as if a demon was gradually awakening. Crack, crack, crack. Affected by the hot air, the space sizzled. Could it be? The commander-in-chief said in surprise. Which move is he going to use? Everyone's face was full of question marks. In a short time, the commander-in-chief seemed to have returned to the scene of the battle between the Sky Demon Emperor and the red-haired man. It was also in the universe. It was also the collapse of the space into nothingness. It was also hot and dry. Finally, holy fire. At this time, the red-haired man suddenly bumped his fists together and roared with red eyes, "Judgment!" Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The fierce collision of the fists created a monstrous flame that spread toward the area where Jun Changshao was at an extremely fast speed. The entire space was dyed red. Jun Changshao frowned and was about to turn around to dodge. However, He found that the surging flame flew in an arc from the left and right, and then kept approaching and surrounding him. Whoosh, whoosh. He was also enveloped by the flame from top to bottom. In the blink of an eye, Jun Changshao was trapped in the sea of fire until all the flames were connected and he fell into a world of fire. Sure enough. The commander-in-chief came to his senses and said in surprise, "Holy fire judgment." This was a kind of divine sense of fire, which formed a fixed area with the sea of fire and locked the enemy in it. It was a bit like the realm of fire. However, Jun Changshao had fire resistance. Could it cause any substantial harm to him? The red-haired man controlled the sea of fire and said lightly, "Hurry up and break the bounded domain of this plane." The commander-in-chief immediately understood. He first locked the green-haired man and then let him break the eternal world. The commander-in-chief didn't hesitate and immediately announced, "All troops, attack." Crack, crack, crack. Crack, crack, crack. The warships gathered in the universe moved their muzzles and locked on the eternal world protected by the formation. Whoosh! At this moment, Jian Guishu flew out and stood proudly in front of the realm protection formation. The 9 swords hung behind him, shining with dazzling light. He said coldly, "With me here, you won't succeed." You're tuning into the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.